We're just 24 minutes later, so we're still good. Okay, this is GoW Podcast number 2. I have myself, Bazik, GimbleB, DrKillSauce, RedJams, and TheSneakyDragon. This is gonna be fun. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves and promote yourselves in some way?
Hey, I'm DrKillSauce. I don't have any social media worth promoting, so that's all.
Gimble?
Hello, I'm Gimbal. I'm the head admin for the tournament Groove of War, and I also do a lot of streaming and stuff for Wargroove.
Nice. RedJams?
Okay, I'm RedJams. I was the champion from last tournament, and I got a dead channel that I don't want to promote.
Okay, SneakyDragon?
Hey, this is SneakyDragon. Welcome to Wargroove. I'm starting a channel that I kind of want to promote, but I guess I won't do that right now.
Just go on YouTube and check SneakyDragon, and you should find it.
He definitely has beginner-friendly Wargroove information on there, so it's a really good place to start.
Yeah, it's one of the best, other than Groove of War YouTube channel, obviously. It's probably the best Wargroove channel, so do check it out. He makes some great content.
I do have competitive tutorials too. All right, enough of that.
Okay, let's move on then. So this week, we're going to start with round 3 brackets. Later on, we'll move on to round 4 brackets. And then after that, tiebreakers. And finally, we'll be having probably a large discussion on maps. So if you want to hear about all that, just listen along throughout the podcast. So let's start with round 3, guys.
Yeah.
Let's go. AWST.
All right, well, obviously we start left to right here, and we look at this TFJ versus SneakyDragon here.
Ooh,
Hey,
hell of a way to
isn't there a video about this? I heard it's on someone's channel.
Yeah, I actually recorded myself live while I was playing this, so if you want to find that video on my channel, you can hear what I was thinking while I was getting my butt kicked. No, actually, it was a really great game. TFJ had a really refined, prepared opening. It was very powerful. I started off really bad, almost made a comeback, and there was a very climactic ending. I highly recommend checking it out.
Yeah, it was definitely a great match. It was to decide who of them would go at the top of the bracket with 3 wins and no losses. So it was definitely one of the more important matches of that bracket that week. So it was really a great watch. I don't know if anyone else has anything else to add.
I never thought I'd get hype for seeing a Tenry play.
Indeed, we saw the only Tenry actually being successful this tournament yet?
I think so. At least the only Tenry that used Groove.
It was really well done. And it was deserved, too, because now Tenry's slow charge, she's pretty balanced now.
Yeah.
I'd even say she's a little bit weak, so that was a good play.
I would definitely say she's a little bit weak. Tune in next week when we talk about balance. But yeah, it was really fun.
Now, of course, it did start off with a lot of actually the games on this map, which was Before the Flood 1.1. It did start off with a vertical barge opening, and we'll end up talking about that a little bit later, talking about maps. But there's actually a lot of that went on with a lot of the games, honestly.
Yeah,
that wasn't TFJ's fault. That was TFJ played a great game and deserved that win, but there was something weird there we'll cover on later.
Yeah. I'll just say this. TFJ had an opening prepared. He knew what he wanted, and he had a very specific strategy, which is refreshing to see. A player that prepares not only the opening, he prepared the strategy that eventually led to the win. So I think it was one of the better matches on the AWST, but I guess we'll talk about the other ones. So do you guys want to go for Loveless Sequoia?
Hey, Koji got played. I like that.
Big Koji fan. Love Koji.
I'm trying to remember the exact details of this match. I think it was
Elodie versus Koji.
Yeah,
Loveless was Koji's. Sequoia was
Elodie.
Elodie.
Sequoia unironically picks Elodie.
Yeah. Which, for those who don't know, Elodie is right now considered by most of the competitive community one of the weaker commanders. So, and that's why we're talking about the unironically.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem very strong right now.
I think it's just map dependent. Because if you get to a point where you face your commander with like golems or like knights or even just units defending like a HQ, then she becomes really strong. So before
I want
the
to see
flood,
on Oblivion.
yeah, before the flood has a lot of golems and dragons. So maybe that's why he picked it.
Yeah. The match was a bit lopsided, I think. I think Loveless pretty much controlled the whole match throughout. It was not a case of he had a specific strategy that he wanted to employ. He just played straight up well and won the match. I don't know if anyone wants to say anything about the match specifically, other than what has been said.
No, I think
we
it
covered
was
it.
a very clear-cut case of like just saw some good Koji plays. If I remember correctly, I remember it was like a Koji bomb that finished. Like there was a cool setup with those where he punched a hole through, which allowed him to kill the commander.
Yeah. It was definitely a case of a clean play. Like Loveless just played cleanly, and he kept gaining advantages, and eventually he just made Sequoia tumble, right?
Yeah.
So let's go in Luftburg. Let's not waste time in matches that people don't want to talk about. Luftburg, what do you guys think? Did they play? It seems they played. Like doesn't say DQ, but I do not remember this match. Does anyone remember what happened?
I mostly have like it's less of a memory of exact details, but mostly just a memory of I think Luf is newer to the community and Burke's been around for a long time, and it was the kind of match you'd expect from someone saying that sentence of Burke was just more experienced than won.
Yeah. Luf is a newer
It was pretty
player,
straightforward, but Luf did pretty well for being new to the competitive scene. I hope they stick around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so too. It's just when you have someone who's been around since the very beginning going up against someone new, generally speaking, it's going to be fairly one-sided.
Yeah.
Of course, we have a few of these, and there weren't too many games that were in this entire round that were very like lopsided in experience, because the way Swiss works, it tends to even it out. It's just the AWST bracket had less players, so it got a little bit weird with the skill levels involved.
Yeah. But good matches all around. I think there wasn't a match that was like painful to watch. Let's just put it that way. I think all matches were good matches overall. Even though, other than TFJ Sneaky Dragon's game, the results were pretty much in line with what most people would expect.
Yeah, I would say so.
I mean, I think the AWST bracket was a bit weird, like overall, because we had 3 DQs in round 1. So, for example, Loveless, we'd probably expect to see Loveless go 3-0, or at least make it to the match to decide the 3-0. But they unfortunately had to DQ out of round 1, so things got a little bit weird because of that in the bracket.
Yeah. It also meant Loveless had an easier path to his 2-1, right? Because he started playing players that also lost games, so it became different than what people expected, right? Because we expect the best players to keep playing to eventually start catching up with the best players, and we'll see that on other brackets like GMT and PST and even EST to some extent, which kind of didn't happen because Loveless DQ'd the first week.
That being said, I'm playing Loveless in about 2 weeks, so
yeah, that will be fixed soon
happen.
enough.
All right. Well, I think that cover is AWST, I think, for this time. Might as well move on to
Let's
GMT.
move on to GMT then. Okay, GMT. Basic Sejun. I don't have much to say about this, other than the map started in a way that I did not expect. I wasn't aware of the specific opening that we already talked earlier in the TFJ Sneaky match. But it didn't kill me, so I actually recovered fairly well. But then towards the mid game, I made some crucial mistakes in my positioning, which eventually led to my loss. And congrats to Sejun because he played a solid game. And I think that was it. I like my match.
Sejun is an insanely fun player to watch. They always are on the attack, never really backing off. They just keep going, and they'll surprise you with how good their attack positioning is. Most players, when they attack, they leave themselves open. When Sejun attacks, they're kind of solid, and if you attack back into them, you might just lose your commander.
Yeah, he definitely has quite a bit of experience, and he's definitely very good now. I mean, before it was kind of questionable. We hadn't seen too much tournament results out of him, but he's pretty good now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like that's the thing, because it's been so long between Groove of War 3 and 4 that people that may not have performed like super well in Groove of War 3 are coming out after. I mean, in Sejun's case, he's played for what, 8 months straight. I don't
I
think
mean,
I
he's
ever
played
saw him
since the
take a
game
break.
released, or almost since the game released.
But I think a lot of people took downtime after the end of Groove of War 3 and stopped really playing 1.3 as much. But Sejun just kept playing, and you can really see like how big the skill difference is because of that.
I think he, how many of the monthly tournaments has he entered? Did he enter all of them?
Yes.
Okay,
At least to
maybe
my
that's
knowledge.
why. That helps a lot.
Yeah, he plays every tester metal and will sometimes sweep in his entire pool. And we put him in the top pools now, and he still sweeps them occasionally.
Well, I think there's not much to be said past that. I mean, actually, there's one final thing. Of course, at the end of his game, Sejun likes to BM a little bit, or bad manners, and he'll make a few extra moves and kill a few extra units before ending the game, even though he has it available. And yeah, it's fun to watch as long as you know the player that you're going against won't get super upset about that. And Bazik over here, of course, you can't make him mad.
Oh yeah. I got a pretty thick skin.
All right, so I mean, let's just move on to the next one. Master of Math versus Captain Rainbow.
Has anyone seen this match?
Yeah, I saw it.
Okay.
This was played early, wasn't it?
Yeah, because I missed this. I don't know when this happened.
Yeah, I also didn't. I didn't see it. I think I might have seen it, but I don't remember.
I feel like I've seen it, but I don't remember it. And
This was another. It's one of those very uneventful matches where basically you have a stronger player just playing solid and winning out of it.
I thought Captain Rainbow did pretty well in that match. I don't remember the exact details, but I thought it was pretty good.
He did
And
well
then
for sure.
Math Lord inevitably closed it out.
Yeah. It was just a solid game where Matt Lord was always comfortable. That's actually the way Matt Lord actually described the game to me, like a comfortable match. Like Captain Rainbow was never in any way, shape or form in near a win. So eventually, you lost the game. If you've seen other Master of Math games, you know how he plays. Like it's usually not a lot of tricks. It's almost always extremely solid play, and if the game lasts too long, you end up losing because you lose a unit here, a unit there, and eventually you don't have enough. And that's how I feel the game wins.
Okay.
That's a pretty solid description. I think Math Lord is possibly one of the best players right now. He's in contention for that #1 spot.
Definitely.
Okay.
yeah, I think if you ask me who like the 4 players that were going to win this event would be, Math Lord is definitely one of them, or Master of Math. It's confusing because he has his in-game
he
tag.
uses
It's
both
close
names,
enough that you know what it is, but
We just call him Math.
yeah, that also works. Yeah, one thing I'll say is that Captain Rainbow, definitely had a lot of like surprise wins up until like this match, and I think because he beat Ash the round before, right?
Captain Rainbow beat Ash the round before, and Master of Math beat Alsame the round before.
Yeah, so like Captain Rainbow's definitely like good and will take names, but I think in this case it's just like you're going up against someone who was like a contender to win the whole thing. And
Yeah.
Yeah, we gotta give props to actually Captain Rainbow for playing well against Math, for taking Ash out. Those are some pretty big accomplishments.
We'll get to Ash. I don't agree with that statement completely. Let's say.
sorry, so shall we move on?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go to Alsame Sankles.
Okay. He's my contender to win, so.
Should I repeat myself like I did just last game? Because I think it's basically the same situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean this is a 1-1 match, so like you kind of expect it to be like the people in the middle of the pack around this point. Whereas now you've got one of the people who's also a contender to win,
Yeah.
and also in like my top 4 versus. I think Sankles, this is his first event. Someone can correct me if I'm
Maybe.
wrong.
I don't know.
I don't think we've seen them in a test your metal before.
Yeah, I don't recall seeing. I mean, I know a lot of like old guard players, and I don't recall Sankles playing much. So I think it might be just a newer player to the competitive scene.
And then
they did have the insight to ban Sedge versus Sedgehun on the first game, so at least
it gave us Ragnarhun.
Yeah.
I think a lot of these matches, like the newer players and the older players, they play well up until a certain point, and then the newer players would struggle to finish out the game, while the older players would know exactly what to do.
Yeah,
and I think that's a lot of the matches where both players were fine up until a certain point, and then it's like, oh, the newer players panic, and then older players capitalize on that.
I don't know if it's panicking. I think it's more about experience. Like I think, I completely think like against Sejun, that's what happened to me, right? Eventually, the game got long enough where I started making mistakes here and there because I don't have enough experience in the late game. Because you got to play a lot of games to get that kind of experience. And
yeah, late game in Wargroove is so volatile. Just especially with the Commander Lethal on the board as a win condition. You have to know how to both be able to push towards, like, say, the headquarters or to an unrecoverable economy advantage to win, or while also keeping your commander safe. So that's a very experience-based thing, because a lot of games don't even get to the part where you're all sitting with giant 30-unit armies trying to figure out what to do.
And if it does get to that point, the player with a lot of experience is going to be the only one who's played with that kind of formation level. So they'll know how to protect their critical units, how to attack, how to defend, where to position. And the new player just has to make one mistake, and they'll lose half their army in that turn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go on. Space Front's Ash.
So this is a game I actually do remember, because I think this got played a day late because Ash wasn't feeling well on the day. And we're very accommodating for that right now because, current world situation, if someone says they're not well, we generally take it pretty seriously. So they played this a day late. I recorded the replay. Spacefront overextended the commander. Ash killed the commander with a surround in about 7 turns. It was very much someone makes like that kind of early game mistake and just gets surrounded, and there's nothing they can do about it.
Yeah, and Ash is an experienced player, even though he hasn't been practicing, so it's to be expected that he takes advantage of one of those situations immediately, right?
Yeah, that's just one of those like early game slips where you just lose, and I mean that's what happens when you overextend your commander.
Yeah, I don't think, and that game was played late, so I don't think most of us even saw it. Honestly,
I watched it after, but it was an unimpressive match. Let's just say it like that.
So it's probably not really worth sticking on.
Yeah. So Alexander Data Gloves. This was a bit of a less expected result.
Oh, actually, sorry. Just before we move on, real quick,
Go ahead.
we've been saying Spacefront's new, Spacefront's new. I want to point out that Spacefront has been pretty active in the Discord lately, and they've had some really good test matches against Master of Math. So I definitely think they're a pretty good player, even if they did make that overextend mistake. Just wanted to point that out.
Oh yeah, and I also want to point out that too. I've seen Spacefront in the Reddit, like commenting on Reddit posts for a long time. So he's definitely been around. I just don't think he's been in competitions.
I played Spacefront in the week before this one too.
Yeah.
It was a good game. It was probably my best game actually.
I mean, like, I don't want to go too deep into it, but we saw an almost identical mistake made by a veteran player in one of the other brackets for this map. So
Yeah.
anybody can do this kind of thing.
Everyone makes mistakes. There are no perfect players.
I mean, but you still have to play well to get to that point.
Yeah.
Where you can punish the other player for mispositioning. So I think he did well on that. Alexander's been here for a while. I think he entered like the second one, so this is the fourth one already. So he's an old timer.
No, he was just in Groove War 3.
Really?
He didn't.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't think he entered Groove War 2. I remember because he's the he also RPs as Valder quite a bit.
Okay.
So in that he joined with that role, like in the official Discord. I think after Groove War 2. Actually, I know after because he joined after I did.
Okay.
So.
I mean,
But he was for sure in the Groove War 3.
Yeah, it was still a pretty long time ago too. So.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a vet.
This match I don't recall. Does anyone here recall exactly what happened in that match?
So what happened was, Alexander was playing Valder, and he made a whole bunch of dogs, and he was pushing forward, and it was good for 1 point. But then Data Gloves just switched to Knights and just ran over his army. I think that's just what happened.
Do you mean to say that dogs do not, in fact, counter knights?
I didn't say anything.
Let's not talk about balance.
I mean, that's more of a Reddit meme than a balance thing at this point.
Yeah. Okay, so the rest are DQs, so there's not much to say.
I mean, I do want to like highlight something about the DQs quickly. A lot of these are actually just because of like coronavirus stuff, which is very unfortunate. It's been weird because for a lot of people, their schedules have freed up more, so they're more available to play, and like some people entered because of that. But for other people, I think one person lost access to their PC because they're in lockdown.
That
So,
sucks.
yeah, we've had quite a few DQs each round, and it's literally just because of the state of the world right now.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about EST. We have CMA Valleys versus Deliscore.
Deliscore's a veteran, so he's the more experienced player. Wasn't a big surprise for me.
Yeah, I think that Deliscore have had really good games, always calm and collected, which is something that a lot of players don't have. And basically, this was one other instance where he won later in the clock, right? I don't remember exactly, but I think it was like 1 or 2 minutes.
It was. I think I saw the number 1 on the clock in the minute.
Yeah, it was
so.
like, and it actually creates really good games because instead of playing like super fast at the start and then starting to play slower and slower, I think he actually plays at a pretty much fairly constant speed. Obviously, some turns take longer than others, but he actually does it. Like, he actually manages his time quite well, and as long as it keeps working, I think it creates some really good games.
I thought he was going to time out, and then all of a sudden, those turns that took a really long time ended up giving this huge positional advantage, and then just ended up sweeping his opponent.
Yep. And
it was really cool.
And he has done it several times now, so it's not a fluke.
I mean, but Deliscore was pretty close to getting lethal. It was like 3%. But that.
Oh, so, this is the one with the
puzzle lethal.
The puzzle lethal.
Yeah.
There was a slight misstep on Avelis's part where they could have barged a dog forward to get a crit from the other two dogs instead of but
and it would become a coin flip instead of not being able to get there.
I think it could have if he'd high rolled like everything.
It was
perfectly.
if it was perfectly. I actually checked. I actually streamed that match, and if you watch the whole stream throughout, you'll see that after the match ended, I actually made a map, and we actually got all the numbers, and we actually tested the whole thing. And if he had done it perfectly, he had around a coin flip chance of getting it. But it still wasn't certain. But because he didn't do it perfectly. And this was a really hard puzzle, by the way. Because he didn't do it perfectly, there was no way he was going to kill him in that spot. But there was a chance. Like, he could have improved his odds, let's say.
Yeah. And that's just one of those things of, like, if you're going to go for that, you have to do it, like, in the most optimal way possible. Because otherwise, like, you're throwing away, like, 4 or 5 units worth of, like, aggression.
We're talking of using, like, I don't remember the exact number, but it was either 6 or 7 different units engaged in that fight.
It
was pretty insane.
One mage killed a balloon.
One mage did a heal. Boat. 3 dogs. A soldier and a golem.
A soldier and a golem.
It was pretty insane.
So yeah, using that many units to attack in one turn on something that is just going to go back and heal, and it will cost like 450 gold or something to heal a commander back to full at that point.
Yeah. At maximum, it'll cost 494 gold, because you'll have, if you left them with 1 HP, they regen 5 HP and heal the rest up. I think something like that, or maybe it's not even 494. That's not real math.
It's less. It's quite a bit less actually.
So,
like, it's more like 460 or something at most.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've just like tossed away a whole bunch of units. Like some of them literally die. Like a bunch of them take a whole bunch of counter attack damage, and then you're left with like you've done what? Like you've killed a balloon and dealt maybe like 400 golds worth of damage to a commander that are just going to go and heal.
It's definitely one of those situations where you either get the lethal, or you probably shouldn't. You shouldn't do it at all. So it's a hard situation because it was he was under a lot of pressure, and he actually needed to win right then and there. So maybe should have spent some more time and optimized it a little bit more. But I said it in that day, and I still think it like. Maybe some of the top players would get it, but when you're under pressure in a tournament setting, like making that play perfect isn't easy. Like it's super hard, and I don't fault him at all for not getting the perfect execution there.
But yeah, I think that's everything that needs to be said about that match.
Yeah, let's move on then. So Luis Barcenas versus Mohinder.
I thought this map. Yeah, sorry. I thought this was going to be probably one of the best matches of this round. And it wasn't, and I'm sure somebody else can expand on that.
So yeah, like they are duo partners. They will start 2v2s with just about everyone, and when they're working together, they just become some of the best players in Wargroove for 2v2. They've been really solid as a team. So to see them like fight each other was really exciting, but I'll let you guys say what happened.
So remember earlier when I was talking about how in the example of Spacefront versus Ash, another match had happened where someone overextended early and got surrounded and killed. That's literally what happened to Luis. They pushed their commander forward. I was talking to Mohinder after the game, and apparently Mohinder knew about this, where if the commander goes forward to do, I think it's like a certain hit on a village.
It's the corner village, below or above the Rex that has a bridge on it. And if you attack that village, if you go straight for it, either on top or bottom, if you know that's a possibility, you can counter it, and you can actually just get the commander stuck there and just win the game right then and there.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. And Mahinder was saying that earlier in the day they'd figured that out. So when they saw it, they knew exactly how to play against it and just won.
Yeah. That happened to me in practice, and that's why I know.
Wait, if they knew about it, someone still went for it?
Well, Luis didn't know about it, but Mahinder knew the counter to that strategy.
Oh, okay. I thought they were playing with each other.
No,
Oh.
and you can definitely expect Valder to go for such an aggressive strategy.
Yeah.
Always trying to get that
even
those
without
slight aggressive plays.
even without Valder, because that play is actually safe under most circumstances. But actually, if you think the other player might do it, you do an early balloon, and you actually just win the game right then and there. And the problem is you as the attacking player, before attacking the village, you need to know that balloon is the reason you're gonna die or not. And it's actually pretty hard. Like it's one of those plays where after you see it, you go like, oh, this was super obvious. But sometimes you don't, because you don't associate. Oh, he built a balloon, so I'm gonna die because of it.
So it depends. I gotta say,
I know
it
it depends, but it's not.
Every time I see a balloon, I think that because I have played against Shu so many times that if I see a balloon, I think this is gonna surround me. This is gonna trap me. I think you literally hear me narrating that in one of the videos. Oh, I haven't released this one yet. In one of the videos I'm about to release.
Spoiler
on my channel.
alert.
Yeah. You'll literally hear me narrating, okay, that balloon, that could trap me here, and it's gonna kill me.
Yeah, and that's what happens on that map, so yeah. Okay, next match. Zested against Frodbrand.
Tenry plays. That's what I remember. But this one actually timed out, I think, for
Frodbrand?
fraud, yeah.
Frodbrand is one of the newer players, I think.
So is Zested.
Yeah.
I think Zested has a bit more experience than Frodbrand, right? So Zested has participated in Test Your Metals, while Frodbrand hasn't. Am I correct?
I can't confirm or deny that. I mean, I fought Zested a few times just in some casual matches, and I think I've fought Frodbrand too. So, from my experience, I feel like they're probably an equivalent level of skill in my mind, but
I feel like I've seen Zested around more.
Yeah, that's my experience. But I'm not sure, so.
I don't know, definitely see them around more now that I think they're getting both of them are getting the hook for the competitive mode, and now they're talking in discussions about, C&D discussions.
Yeah, definitely.
Everything.
Definitely. These are
One
two
thing-
hopefuls, that's for sure.
Just to confirm, was this the match where Tenry grooved the witch away so the dragon could move more freely? I feel like that happened at the end.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I didn't cast this game, so I didn't end up seeing it.
Let me.
I
It's
don't-
weird because these didn't happen that long ago, but I only remember about half of them.
Yeah,
Well-
that's why we need to do this podcast weekly, so you remember the matches. Because I'm sure this won't be happening in round of 4. Like, I can remember almost all the maps in round of 4 easily.
Oh, and we had like 3 people streaming these EST matches at once, so like I had like all these streams going on and was only watching some of them at any given time.
Okay.
That-
No, so the Tenry groove was just for grooving a dragon next to a forest so a mage can crit it.
Right. Oh, I'm
So-
thinking of a different Before the Flood match then, because there was another one that had a Tenry as well.
Oh, wait. I actually casted this match with Master of Math, yeah. I remember. Because Master of Math was saying something along the lines of, okay, if he's not going to groove, because he wanted to do the trebuchet trick like in Sneaky's match, like TFJ did in Sneaky's match, but he never ended up having the opportunity. So early on, Master of Math said something along the lines of, okay, now that the dragon is near a mountain, he should if he's not gonna Tenry groove in that way, he should just use the groove to move the mage to the mountain on the other side of the map and just kill the dragon outright. And he decided not to use the groove, and he ended up doing that exact same play, but like 4 or 5 turns later. So, yeah, I remember that. Like Terry was played, but it wasn't optimal play from it. Like it's one of those cases where I think the lack of experience in those kinds of situations lacked a bit. But it was a decent game. Like I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty even. It was a good game.
Yeah. Let's go to Junior Smash and xTimeKey.
So I remember this match.
Yeah, you casted this with Ragnar Roquette, right?
I believe so. And the thing I remember most is TimeKey was ahead for the majority of the game. Doing really quite well. Mercia was like pushing the economic leads. The army size was bigger. And then ultimately what happened was Caesar Groove came up. There was a golem and a few other units in the center, and TimeKey just didn't move Mercia back far enough. Like he pulled Mercia back to a mountain, which you think that's a pretty good position to be in. But he really should have just kept moving her back. Like he only used like one move. He should have just kept moving her, because a golem and I think a mage, because of the way Before the Flood center is, like you can get a crit from
Anywhere.
Pretty much
double check.
anywhere.
Yeah, there's 2 forests next to that. So the golem walked up, hit Mercia, mage moved up. I think healed the golem, and then we had like a renew cast on them from Caesar, so they got to go again, and then it turns out like even when you're on a mountain, like a golem hitting you twice
Hurts.
and a mage crit hitting you, well, yeah.
You basically
always
pulled
have
the
to
time key,
respect the
right?
lethal.
Let's be clear here. You pulled the time key. Time key pulled another time key.
I should explain what a
He
time
was
key
ahead,
is.
and he just pulled another time key. A time key, let's be clear, for those who weren't here last time, a time key is when a player is very far ahead, and then, instead of just playing super safe and finishing the game, they put their commander in situations where the commander just dies.
I feel like this is like a bit more of a... Because normally that's like implying this level of like you make a mistake, but in this case, I mean,
He did.
Kind of make
He did.
But it's also the case of like you don't respect Caesar as much as you should, because Caesar's Groove is terrifying.
Isn't that par for the course in a time key? If you're pulling a time key, you're disrespecting your opponent. You're going like, there's no way that he can kill me. He's so behind.
No,
and then you just die.
The difference there is like what I would refer to as like a time key in like quotation marks is like you move your commander forward and it gets surrounded by a balloon or something. It's like you die to something that's kind of something you should like expect to just like.
He should have expected dying there.
Yeah,
let's be honest.
But in this case,
like he died to a Caesar Groove, which everyone then has the kind of experience Time Key has. Like I know Time Key only did that mistake because it was a tournament game. It's that kind of mistake you do because you're under pressure and you're not thinking completely clear.
Caesar's biggest strength is if you do not respect him, he will kill you.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
is the essence of Caesar. If you're playing against Caesar, they've got groove. You need to back off and respect that.
Yeah, well, Caesar's a cute dog, so I understand.
The majestic beast.
I mean, something interesting as well is that this is quite rare for Caesar to actually win a match. Like, if you look at the results from this tournament, Caesar's been getting destroyed.
He hasn't played much, right?
We've had about 6 games of Caesar so far.
I know I played Caesar against Sedge, and I lost. But Matt Lord played Caesar mirror match against Sedge, and obviously Caesar won. In this match, Caesar also won.
There was a bunch of other games where he lost, though. Like, I think a lot of people pick Caesar just because, like, they think, oh, he's the best commander.
But I don't think we've seen a lot of top players picking Caesar. I think that's why Caesar is having a harder time.
We haven't, and there's a good reason for it. I can tell you as a Caesar main that I don't love Caesar on some of these maps. A lot of the time, your commander doesn't have the full contingent of their army next to them, and that's what Caesar wants. You want your whole army there. You want to be squaring off against the enemy commander. What happened in TimeKey's match is exactly where you want to be a Caesar. I'm standing here, you're a few feet from me, and I've got my most powerful troops at my side. That's core Caesar right there. But in these matches where you have like half your army defending your stronghold, your commander could be anywhere on the map. Who bloody knows? It's like, Caesar isn't that useful.
I think that, honestly, I can agree with that argument. I think that's a strong argument on it.
Yeah.
I think there's also, we sort of touched on about I think it's also a skill cap thing. So a lot of times we pick Caesar, and when we get down to it in my game, I pick Caesar too. And honestly, I almost never play Caesar because he's always banned. And among other mistakes I made, I just couldn't capitalize on Caesar. And I think that was partly into what TheSneakyDragon is saying, but also I think it was just, I just didn't know, I didn't have a strategy to play with Caesar. I just chose him because I thought he was strong, and I ended up suffering for that.
You know, that's another part of it too. Caesar has a ridiculously high skill cap. You have to change the way you play the game when you're playing Caesar. It's not like Wolfar. You can just play Wolfar and he will fit into whatever style you're playing. That's why I personally, I know some people think Caesar is the third strongest. I think Wolfar is the third strongest because he is good in every situation. Like, you want to rush? Play Wolfar. You want to defend? Play Wolfar. Maybe there's this one weird situation where you can deny Wolfar melee range.
Guys.
That's how you counter Wolfar.
Let's break up the commander conversation. Let's get back into the matches, huh?
Fair.
But it was just like an interesting note of, like, we've seen a lot of Caesar losing, and this was like one of the first times I remember seeing like a Caesar actually win a match.
Yeah. So the Inferno Chain. How was that match? Anyone remembers?
I remember this
Then
because I went and looked at the result page on the MatchGG and looked at the commanders, and what I see is that the Inferno was playing Mercia, and then I remembered, I remember how this match ended, because it was a TimeKey at the very last moment. I think the Inferno had his entire army next to the headquarters of Shane, and then just put Mercia in a position where she could be attacked from 4 sides, which is a good way to die, and that's exactly what happened. So the Inferno was literally about to win in the next turn, and didn't even need to have the commander at all. Like, you could have just like sent Mercia all the way to the back next to your headquarters. It was that level of like, I'm winning the entire match right now. I think he had like triple the army size of Shane at the end.
I do remember. I remember that now. Yeah, he was. I think the Inferno was player 2, and he was in a really good spot. And just, yeah, I remember it now. That's pretty much exactly right. He pulled the classic TimeKey.
Yeah, there's a case of like, once you have enough of a lead, you could just send your commander to like go sit in a corner for the rest of the game.
Okay. So
Okay.
I expect. Does anyone has anything to add, or should we go to PSD?
Just one quick thing to add. We're constantly saying pull a TimeKey. I just want all the viewers out there to know that TimeKey has fully endorsed the use of the phrase pull a TimeKey. If you make a mistake in a match, we're not going to name something after you. This was actually by TimeKey's own design and will and intent. Just putting that out there.
Yes, and game versus me on Before the Flood. I was there for the titular moment when he sacrificed Dark Mercia from an extremely winning position.
Okay, then let's go to PSD.
TimeKey's even in Twitch chat and is agreeing. So
Okay, let's go. PSD. Faded Sun, GillSauce. GillSauce, would you like to explain how you lost?
Yeah, well, obviously it was because this map is just complete trash and has big FTA issues, and the fact that I threw away like a whole bunch of units for free, that didn't mean anything. Yeah, there was no, it was just no. The truth is, I just played really poorly, and I will say I feel like part of it was because I was caught off guard with the opening in the same way that like Bazik and TheSneakyDragon were. And the thing is, like, and I had we're like the latest matches in the thing, so I had seen this opening, and I had time to prepare something for it, and then Faded Sun switched it up just a little bit, and I just did not react properly. And I just ended up putting my co in a place where I shouldn't have. And I honestly think if I hadn't been playing Caesar, I would have been doing better. But I was trying to put my Caesar in a place, sort of like what Sneaky said, with rest of my army against his commander. But I ended up like losing all my units like a turn before Caesar got his groove, and it was just a tragedy on all fronts.
Okay.
That's it. I mean, you guys probably have an outside view of that, but
thanks
that's
for
how I
sharing.
felt.
Anyone want to add anything? Nice.
No, I mean,
And
like,
you
I will
mentioned-
say that. I just
Go
want to say,
ahead,
like,
go ahead.
Faded's been playing super well.
Other than this week, right?
Other than this week, just in general,
Yeah,
Faded's
because
been
when
playing
we
well.
get to round 4, like this, that statement will no longer be true.
We'll get to that conversation.
Yeah. Let's go. Endiment, I will be an inch.
TimeKey, Enderman could have won.
I
He was
will.
in the
I
winning
will just
position.
say this. I will be an inch fan right now.
Oh, me too. I'm so rooting for
I am
will
a
be an
fan.
inch.
The first time I met, let's say, I don't know him personally, obviously, but the first time I saw a game of his, it was a super, super fun casual match between I Will Be an Inch and Headphone. And Sneaky was there, Psychoya was there, and we casted it. And it was a blast. It was really, really fun. And from that day on, I am a big, big fan. So I'm really, really happy he's getting results in the tournament.
I Will Be a Ninja is amazing. It's like they do this crazy shit, and you're like, what are they doing? There's no way they're gonna win. Whoa, they just won! What is happening? I'm rooting for them all the way. That was, oh my god.
I will say I didn't get a chance to play him yet, even though he's in my bracket. It just happened that I never came up across him, probably because I got a bye in the first round.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he's been doing very well for someone who we had no idea what they'd be playing like.
Yeah. I think this was a clear upset, right? We're talking about Endiment, which is a well-known and well-regarded player of the community. And I Will Be an Inch took the match, so this is awesome to see, actually.
I actually have a couple of things to say about this match, though. Is Enderman hadn't lost because he literally just like surrendered, like he didn't play the match out. Oh no, wait, no,
No,
he
did.
just threw his commander.
Yeah,
at
he
him.
pulled the
He
time
pulled
key.
the TimeKey. He pulled the
Oh, but it wasn't like a time key. I think it looked like he just deliberately just threw his commander into like a position.
That's what pulling a time key is, though.
No, pulling a time key is doing it by accident. This looked like he deliberately just
Oh,
got
no.
frustrated and
No,
threw.
Endiment didn't throw the game.
Like that's what it looked like, because from what I was seeing earlier, there was a coin flip he went for when he had a lead, and the coin flip failed. And from that point onwards, it just kind of looked like he was just frustrated and wanted to just like keep throwing units at the enemy commander until he died. And it got to the point where he just threw his own commander at him when like there was no chance of it working. So that's my take on it. Is it looked like Enderman was in the lead and then just got frustrated and lost.
Sure.
I'll just
I
say
went
we
back
I
can't
and
still think he
underestimate.
pulled a time key, because to me, pulling a time key is just you're super ahead, and you just put your commander out there and just lose because of it. Doesn't matter how you feel about it, like what the specifics were.
Like I think there's a specific difference here of like it just looked like instead of surrendering, he just like sent his commander into a position where like he knew it would die.
But he was
Wait,
ahead when that
He wouldn't
happened,
have
still,
healed
right?
his commander before this, though. He healed and then he attacked.
But there was like absolutely no way like the kill would have happened at all.
Yeah, but it's
Like-
not like he put a fire with twins on top of his commander, right?
I mean, effectively he did. Like he just literally took a commander that wasn't going to kill the enemy commander and threw it at that commander when it was surrounded by enemy units.
Yeah, he made a mistake.
I mean that is like a deliberate throw. Like I don't see how that's a mistake at all. Like there's a difference between like your opponent getting a cool surround on you or something when like you're just slightly out of position and walking your commander straight headfirst into the entire enemy army and like with nothing backing it up. Like there's like such a huge difference between like those two circumstances.
Yeah, I know they're different. That's okay. I think we're getting nowhere, so let's move on. Nargatep, Shum. What do you guys think?
I think, honestly, I feel like this game went probably exactly as we expected it to.
Yeah, Shu is one of the favorites to win the whole thing, so...
I mean, I still think Nargatep is a... Yeah. You go on, Sneaky.
Oh, no, sorry. I was just saying, like, I thought Nargatep had a shot at this one. That's it.
I mean, after the previous week where I managed to beat Shu, I think everybody has a shot at that. You know, it means that Shu can make mistakes. Shots fired at myself there.
If I can do it, anyone can do it.
Oh, that was a suicide bombing for me. Oh. No, what I'm just saying is that I think Shu is capable of making mistakes.
Oh, he's capable of making mistakes. Awesome.
I think there's a little bit of this thing in our community where we deify him.
Yeah, a mythos around that.
Yeah, so.
I never do that.
Yeah, no. Not that unreleased video.
I didn't release it.
Yes, I said unreleased. Nobody has to know. It's an inside joke between the few people who know about it.
The mythical content.
But so I think there's a chance. So I don't think like if you end up getting matched with Shu, no matter who you are, I think there is, especially after I think if you just play fast and you almost like auto move units, it'll be like what Bazik said, where Shu will take his one advantage where he thinks that he'll out-time you no matter what, and he'll just start playing fast, and that opens him up for mistakes. So I think there's a strategy. Is it a good strategy? Probably not, but you know, it's worth a shot.
Shu is very good. Shu is very fast. I will say that Shu does make mistakes, which gives you a chance to beat them. Like, when I was very new, I still managed to take a game off Shu from time to time because I'd be like, oh, I found this thing where if I do this and this and this and this and this, I can get a lethal maybe. So, like, it's possible, but also I do want to say that Shu was still one of the favorites to win this. Shu's a pretty good player.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the best.
Math in Twitch chat right now is saying Shu makes mistakes and it's always the night crits. So that's
so
where you
true!
get him.
Oh my god, that's so true.
Yeah.
It's always night crits, so just build knights and you beat Shu. Yeah, that's our that's the motto.
Yeah.
I feel like just like going over the times I've beaten Shu in the past, it's like when I lose, it feels like I'm losing to very solid play, but when I win, it's like I pulled like the most bizarre mage heal suiciding like a bunch of units into his commander in like an awkward position kind of win. Where it's just like he'll lose to stuff that's like super out there that like nobody really predicts. So you can absolutely beat him.
I will say that is sort of going off the topic of the game though, so I think the game sort of just honestly it ended in the way we expected it to.
Shu played better and he ended up winning.
There was a chance of Nargatep coming back and winning, and I see Nargatep also in the Discord learning and trying to figure out some of these openers too. So it's not like he's to be discounted in any way. So it definitely was not a 100% Shu's going to win scenario. I think that Nargatep had a chance.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing to take out of that.
Yeah. Okay, so then we had a DQ and a bye, so I don't know if there's anything else to say. And that was round 3. That was last week. And next we'll be doing this week, which was round 4. Next, we'll take a small break.
I
and
did
then we'll
want
come
to.
up-
I did want to say one thing. I have to rescind my statements that I said on the last podcast about Fated Sun and how I thought I could beat him because my wife beat him in a match once.
And you're bringing it up now. Everyone's gonna watch this podcast and they're gonna search it for the last one. Awesome.
So I mean, I was sure that was a. I thought that for sure that was going to be a sure win against me and Fate. I'm just like, I'll just beat him because my wife beat him once, and that's not a good way to think that you're going to win a game, guys. So just keep that in mind.
Okay. So, guys, 5 minutes break, and then we'll be back for round 4.
Yeah, I'm just gonna grab a drink.
We're now joined by a Master of Math.
Hello.
And we're gonna do round 4, and we're starting with AWST that had a tiebreaker between Burke v Sequoia. Anyone want to add anything to that?
I mean,
It was a
I
pretty-
watched this match.
Yeah, I
So-
watched it too, so I also have to say something. Go ahead.
I was asleep during this match.
Matthew, you can go first.
So I found it pretty surprising that Sequoia actually went the whole game without winning a game. But this match, it was interesting. There was Miss Lethal, and then Burke got he kind of built up a big lead, and then he eventually got Lethal on Sequoia. But by that point, it was already pretty over.
Yeah, I have similar feelings about it. Sequoia is a member of the community that has been a little bit underperforming. I practice with him a lot. I think he's a lot better than what he showed in the tournament. And I think definitely, probably some nerves showed during the game. Because, like you said, he had a Lethal in the middle of it, and he didn't even see it, right? It wasn't like he missed it. He just didn't go for it. So Burke definitely deserved the win. He played well, and he just took advantage of his opponent's mistakes, which ended up. It wasn't a game that ended too fast or too slowly, so it was great.
Yeah, and this is the only match for this week that's going to be on Oblivion's Edge, so that was also something like a bit different as well. Is that like they were playing on a different map from everyone else because they're playing in tiebreakers, and we made the decision that the tiebreaker rounds will be Oblivion's Edge followed by Iranian Labyrinth. So they went into a different map from everyone else. So I don't know if that changed how much practice they were able to get. But yeah, that was just like the other thing to note as well, is they were just playing on something
Different than
else.
everyone else. Yeah.
The other interesting thing about this time on Burke's end is that so far he's been kind of doing everything you don't expect him to do. Like first round, okay, you expect like all the players we know are going to show up, and then he doesn't, and he DQs. And then second round, well, he's playing like TFJ, who we don't really know. We think he's going to win, and then he loses. And then so after all that, so then he plays Loof, and he does win, and we kind of expected that. So that's maybe an anomaly. But then against Sequoia, we kind of think, okay, he's probably not going to win. He lost to TFJ, but then he actually beat Sequoia. So I think right now he's doing everything that people think he's not going to do.
Definitely a player to watch.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I mean, for me, I've never really, and I mean, I've been around for a while, and Burke's been around for significantly longer than I have, and I've only played him like a handful of times. I just know that he spends most of his time in quick match, and even in 1.3 he did. So if like we take a quick match player, especially a 1.3 quick match player, and we try to convert that into a tournament setting, it's not a good conversion. So I personally didn't expect like super high hopes from him, but he does watch a lot of games. I just don't know if it translates into practical experience. But I mean, in the end, I guess it did.
Okay. Let's move on to GMT.
Saturn versus Master of Math. I guess
Yeah.
Math, do you want to open with this?
like I don't know, this game was when I was doing my bans, for like until like maybe like 12, 18 hours before the actual game, I was planning on leaving Sedge unbanned because I didn't really like Sedge on this map. But then eventually I decided it's probably just best to ban Sedge because like lower the risk. And because I realized that with certain openings, you actually kind of get you can get this a pretty reasonable like late game, which is kind of annoying to play. So I just got rid of Sedge to be safe. I also never really planned on banning Caesar, and Sedge didn't either, so we played the Ditto. Uh, I went for the P1 opening, not because I had labbed anything, because I was actually busy, but just because I knew I could get a complicated position, so I was confident in that. I didn't necessarily play it that well, but again, I think I got Sedge on his toes. He made some mistakes, and then at one point I got Groove, and I got some good pressure. And then, like, he kind of just forgot that Caesar can use his Groove to kill HQ. So that was a big mistake. But already at that point, it was getting a bit rough because I could move into the center and he couldn't. And I could go for like a Rax trade, which I'm always going to be way ahead of him. So it was there was problems, but kind of ended a bit prematurely.
Yeah, the game was definitely not over, and Sejun made a big mistake by leaving his headquarters unprotected, and that led to a faster game for sure.
And I mean, I guess that's just Caesar for you, right? Like, when Caesar grooves up, if you make one misstep, then
We kind of handed this discussion earlier with the other game, right?
then this was just another
yeah.
example of that.
Yeah, you because Caesar can turn a situation where you're taking some damage into effectively twice that damage. So it's usually hard for the receiving player to actually calculate the whole engagement, and it's obviously not impossible, but it's hard to do because you need to expect not what can actually happen, but twice that amount, and it becomes a lot of complicated stuff happening at the same time because there's so many variations of it, and people tend to make mistakes against Caesar a lot under those circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, that just shows you more about this. I mean, I don't think. God, I don't know where I'm going with this. It's just it's a high skill champion too, the Caesar. So a lot of people don't even have practical experience against like a high level Caesar play. Even somebody like Sejun, like most of the time, Caesar is banned in most tournament settings, or he's been banned by a player. So truly, unless you're having people who play him at a high level in a casual match, I think a lot of people are unaware of just how powerful he can be.
I don't think Caesar's that necessarily like a hard commander. Like it's just kind of calculation. Like it's kind of like Ryota. He's not really a hard commander. It's just brute force calculation, and like either something works or it doesn't. So you just have to calculate.
Yeah.
So not necessarily hard.
It's usually that you don't expect as much damage as he can actually dish, right? Like you're looking at the situation and you're thinking like, okay, I can take damage from two sides. And usually when you can only take damage from two sides, you expect to be completely fine. And against most characters, that's actually true. But against Caesar, that stops being true a lot of the times. And sometimes people aren't expecting that, especially in this pressure situation where you're nervous and you really want to win. And sometimes you just make mistakes. It's that simple. Mistakes that you would not do under normal circumstances, and you just think like, and you just autopilot, right? You just go into the situation and you're like, okay, I'm on a mountain, so I'm safe. And Caesar goes like, no, 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 the end. And it's hard. Like,
I don't want to get into a commander discussion, but I will say that that's not like something unique to Caesar. I've killed players on a mountain with a bunch of different commanders with very few sides exposed. You just have to be aware of the math, and that's what it really comes down to. Did you calculate this out? Have you seen Caesar do this before, and are you taking that into consideration?
While that is true for any damage that can do ranged damage, Caesar is one of the highest damage, range damage characters in the game, which changes things a bit. Like with Ragna, you'll add 20-something% damage to that equation. With Caesar, you can add 60% extra damage on top of whatever it was. So Caesar ends up being more punishing than some of the other commanders in that
It
regard.
depends how you play against it. All right, never mind.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah,
talk
yeah.
about this next week.
The answer of you
Yeah.
can always... I'll just say this. The answer of you can always play better is not a good answer.
That's not what I'm saying.
That's exactly what you said, though.
I mean, no, it wasn't. But like, let's move on anyway.
Yeah, let's keep going.
Well, maybe we should have RedJams take, because he kind of was the winner of a tournament that was Caesar everywhere. Caesar Ditto.
Maybe next week.
Yeah, next week
We
we're
can
going to
talk
have a
about
lot of
Commander
time to talk about a lot of stuff. Because it will be basically 3 matches and whatever we decide to talk about. So
Okay.
I'm thinking next week we should talk about Commanders extensively. And what do we think about it after we have seen so many games of competitive Wargroove with them.
I feel like also, I mean, we're going slightly off topic here, but like once we're further into the tournament, that's when we see like the higher skill players repeatedly fighting each other. So that's when we're really going to start seeing like where commander balance starts lying, because we're going to see less one-sided matches. It's going to be your like people that you're expecting to win the event going up against each other.
But that also might be cool, right? We talk about it next week, and then we talk about it again after the whole tournament is done. And then we can kind of compare like how our feelings were about certain commanders and certain commanders that people thought were broken at the time, and we get to the end of the tournament and they were inconsequential, or vice versa, commanders that were completely ignored, that suddenly because of the bans and because of what people thought about them, suddenly they become the more important commanders. That will be certainly fun.
Okay. But anyway, let's move on to like Vito versus Bazik.
Okay, the match ended in 6 turns. Let's go.
Someone got HQ rushed,
Yeah.
basically.
I got HQ rushed, my build wasn't ready for what he did, and I just died. It's actually that simple, and I can go a lot into it, but I think that should be saved for the map discussion. Because I don't think it was a game where I played against Vito. It was a game where our 2 strategies faced off against each other. The several moves were executed, and one strategy just completely beat the other one. Like, I didn't make a single decision that game. By the time I started making decisions, which was around turn 3 or 4, the game was actually pretty much over. So
I think this game is a good lesson to not autopilot, because I think like I was paying a lot of attention to how much time Bazik was taking, and it was like on the last important turn where it kind of went all bad, he took like 20 seconds, which is like barely enough to move all your units and make units.
it is
So like
pretty
you really
standard.
need to think about your turns, and otherwise you can have accidents happen like that.
That can be true to some extent, but it's the amount of time I was spending on turn 3, which is the turn you're talking about, is pretty standard. And if you go throughout the tournament, that's what most people are spending. 20-30 seconds at most on turn 3.
Vito actually took an extra minute more than you, so he was thinking about the position.
Yeah, what Vito did, you don't need to think about, by the way.
Okay,
So I don't think that's a great
hold
example.
on. We don't need to discuss this yet, because I know this is going to end up taking up the entire thing if we try to stop it now. We can bring back our personal opinions on C&D later. Now that Math is here and Bazik are here, I'm sure it's going to get into a great civil discussion. But
What are you talking
Right,
about?
let's keep
I'm
going
always
through the
civil,
results.
civil.
All right. So there goes versus Ash. It was basically an exact repeat of Vito versus Bazik. There is, I mean, I guess we should state it now, is that there is a headquarters rush you can do.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to counteract it, you just lose.
Yep.
And you lose in
Well-
6 turns.
And it was poorly executed by Data Gloves, and he won anyway, by the way.
Well, this one is actually a bit different, because this is with Wolfar. If it's not with Wolfar, then it's really easy to stop. You have to ignore HQ to lose to it. So this one was a bit different, but like Ash's defense, he gave 2 free swords really early. So when you only have like 3 units and you give away 2 by HQ, you're good.
You're saying that, but he missed the Wolfar groove anyway. Like this
I have
was
a
this was the game where he
recommendation.
used the groove wrong with Wolfar.
All right, recommendation to help us get through this more, to keep with the schedule we designed so that C&T talk happens later.
We're going
Let's
fast through
just
the matches
focus
anyway.
on the matches that did not have rushes.
Yeah, then we'll skip like 3/4 of the matches.
Yeah, well, that's
Yeah,
That's fair.
yeah, that's fair.
Should we
Alright,
just
so-
skip the matches just because they had a rush in them? I
Well,
don't think
there's
that's
only
fair.
one
Because
more
we're
that
going
had,
to
that had
talk
a
about
rush.
it later.
There's only
can't
one more
talk
in
about a
GMT that had a rush, and the rest are DQs, and then there's Captain Rainbow Alsam. So
That's why I
Alright,
said
so-
discard 3/4 of the matches. But sure,
Yeah,
let's go.
alright.
Let's just keep the matches where rushes existed.
So actually, the next one, Alsame versus Captain Rainbow, was actually an interesting game. Like, it was
But
a
it
really
started
fun
with a
game.
rush though. Alsame went for it, and Captain Rainbow defended it because he knew about the build, and then the game went off after it. And Alsame was actually behind for a good chunk of the first part of the game because of it. So
From what I
that's what I think
remember-
is more interesting about that match.
maybe I don't remember it right, but I don't think Alsame went for the HQ rush. He didn't do the builds where you do Wolfar and
He had like
rush HQ.
he had commander and 2 knights at turn like 6 or 7 in front of the HQ of his opponent. He might have not executed it perfectly, but he went for it.
I feel like it was less him going for that exact rush and more just like he went for a very similar like pressure on the HQ.
Yeah,
and
that's my point.
Captain
He
Rainbow
didn't-
just
He didn't do the optimal version of the rush. That's my point. He went for it. Like if this is what I've been stating. We'll get more thoroughly in the actual map discussion, but that's one of the things that I've been saying all along. Like you don't need to do the optimal rush. You can just go for it, and if the other guy defends, you just can get off of it. You're not
Well,
locked
it isn't.
into the
If
decision,
you
right?
actually go for the rush, then you're basically lost. So actually, I'll open up the game and double check.
well,
But I don't think it was a rush. It was
TimeKey's
just
in
some
chat over there, and he's actually saying Alsame was Wolfar there, and Captain Rainbow was Sigrid.
Yeah, he went for it. Like I don't know.
He didn't go for it hard, like sort of the strategy that everybody had been talking
Yeah.
about.
He didn't
but
do
he
the
did-
optimal version.
He didn't do the thing that everybody else was just copying. But
All right. Maybe the
did
first
push
thing we
with
should do is talk about what a rush is, because it occurs to me, some people watching might not know. In general, a rush, a good rush, is when you plan out the first 5 to 7 turns of a match, so that using very particular, very planned unit builds, commander choices, and grooves, you can win the match without having to fight your opponent head on. You destroy their commander, or usually their HQ, without actually really playing through the game.
Yep.
A well-executed rush that you invented yourself is normally considered really well done. Props for you for figuring it out and going through it. But sometimes if there's absolutely no counterplay, even if your opponent sees it's coming, it becomes a question of whether or not player 1 or player 2 had an advantage. It becomes a question of the stability of the map.
Then
And it's a little bit less clear if it was a good move or if there was a problem with the game. And that's effectively the discussion that we're trying to avoid having until we talk about the games first, is whether or not there was a legitimate rush strategy on this map or whether or not the map had a problem.
okay, well, you're right. You're very right, and we shall edit that and put that right in the beginning of the map talk.
I don't think
But-
that's needed.
but we're gonna
let's
keep doing
going.
this
Let's keep
over and
going.
over
Yeah,
because
yeah.
this
This
map
is
was
gonna
a
keep
lot.
happening. Yeah. So other than that was what 4. I just want to say this. After the first few turns of the game turned definitely like Captain Rainbow against Alsame. The map definitely became a super normal game and a fun game to watch. I would recommend anyone that wants to watch some cool Groove of War round 4 matches to watch that game. I think it was one of the better matches of this whole round, and it turned into a really interesting match because I feel like Alsame was behind after that initial start, but because he was the superior player, he just kept grinding the game out, and he came out ahead in the end, and he had a very solid win. So it was really a good demonstration of like straight up skilled, good skilled Wargroove games.
Yeah, TimeKey just said, Captain Rainbow didn't convert his lead, and that's a very experience-based thing, and we talked about that earlier about
Yeah, exactly.
just being able to be, when you're in a winning position, as Day 9 or Artosis, who was it, win more?
Both
when you're
of
winning,
them
win
have
more.
that.
Both of
when
them
you
have
get
said that.
ahead, get more ahead.
Get more ahead, and that's a, like, it sounds easy, but sometimes it's not as easy as you think.
It's really hard.
Also,
sometimes.
I just want to note that I think part of that is due to picking Sigrid as well. Like, she isn't. She's actually pretty low on the.
Here we go,
on the,
commanders.
Oh no! Oh
But,
no!
like, I just want to mention that because, like, I think if
I know. You're right.
there
to
was
talk
a
about it.
stronger commander being played than Sigrid, it would be easier to convert an advantage.
Exactly. That's
I think
very
if
true.
pretty much he played almost any other commander, he would have done better.
I don't know
Well-
if playing Merciful would have made him better, but
Honestly, I think I could argue that Merciful because he wouldn't have put himself in the position where he ended up in.
Okay. So let's go, Mohinder Deliscore. Let's go EST.
Well, I guess we should just mention that Ralexander Spacefront was DH key rush and then go to EST. But yeah.
Oh yeah, no. I started seeing DQs and I thought everyone was going for the Qs. No. Yeah. Let's talk about Alexander's Spacefront. It was another one of those cheeses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Spacefront was one of the more vocal people about.
Well,
This
Spacefront
is
is the
easy to
one who actually designed the strategy that everybody was following. I mean, maybe not designed. I mean, some people were probably doing it in tester metal, but he was the person that I noticed personally.
He
was talking
invested
about
in
it.
He was very invested.
He was the
in it.
one who did the Wolfar rush.
Yeah,
which
with
is the
Wolfar.
problematic one.
He was very invested in it, for sure. But that was a case where he executed it properly, and even though Alexander had a fairly good opening to defend it, he still couldn't get there anyway. I think that's what separates this match from most of the other Rush games. Because Roy Alexander actually had a chance to defend. He needed to play better. That's my take on the match. I don't know if any of you think that that's not the case, but
And
Yeah,
TimeKey
like,
brings
again-
up a good. Oh, go on.
Against Wolfar, you have to play pretty accurately. Like you can't if you make a mistake or two, then you might just lose.
yeah.
That's I think the big difference between him and everyone else.
Yeah, we'll talk about the map specific stuff at the end, because I think to continue that, we actually need to start talking about the map specifically, not the match itself.
Okay, so let's go on to the Mohinder vs. Delscore, which I personally think is also another one of the really good games on this map that happened
Yep.
this round.
Again, Deliscore giving us some of the better matches in the tournament. Like that, to me, that has happened a lot. Like,
And
Here
I
we go.
think it's weird because I don't remember the specifics. I just remember Deliscore's units just seem to have better positioning the
Yep.
whole game.
it was just keeping it straight, playing well, and winning in the end. That's exactly what I want to see of the games.
Like I think Mohinder went for the center commander strat, but then he got very passive, so he just made it so like P2 was like the person who was doing P1 in the center. And then I don't remember exactly, but he made some errors. He gave up Groove, and then he ended up giving away his commander.
Yeah. You're totally right. I didn't even recall that. Like at the start of the game, they both went vertical openings, and even though Mohinder was player one, instead of taking advantage of the fact that he had a small FTA by going vertically, he then gave up the metal because he didn't felt confident going into it. But I think it was still a good game, even though there was that small misstep, I would say.
Yeah, and that was also Deliscore going 4-0, so he was guaranteed out first in that point.
Yeah. It was a good match overall. So Zesta Junior Smash, how was that match?
TimeKey.
Junior
I
Smash was
agree.
ahead.
Not ahead, but then he just ran in and died.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only
Right.
thing I remember him is just sending his commander into a dead spot, and yeah.
And then he got 2 knights on him, and the commander hit just finished him off. He did defend the rush well though, so there was that. But afterwards, it kind of fell apart.
Okay. I didn't see the match, so I have no idea. So CMA Shane.
I'm going to need to go check something quickly in the brackets, but I recall one of the matches in EST was someone building a witch instead of a harpy, and I can't remember if it was this game.
This game, like Shane's, he skipped capturing the racks, and then he spammed spears on the HQ side, and then he lost HQ.
Oh
And-
yeah, and like he did actually build a witch instead of a harpy.
Yeah, he
So
built
he
a
was-
witch, but it didn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would have made like a tiny difference, but no, like he skipped capturing racks on turn 1.
I think he had a strategy. I think he definitely had a strategy planned for it. I just don't think he tested it out on how it would work. Like even if he had built that harpy, because it's almost a given on any competitive map that if you are within range of a barracks to capture it on turn 1, that you capture it turn 1. It's not even. It'll just put you so far behind if you don't capture it. And he skipped that capture and was going for like a quick harpy play to harass people, and it didn't convert at all. Yeah.
Yeah, there are very, very few circumstances where you want to skip getting a production building. And normally it's you skip getting a port or a tower, and it's because you can't really afford to like use them yet. But with a barracks, it's like you're just missing out on building swords.
The only reason to skip a racks is if the map is poorly made and there's a rush that you can do that you need to skip that racks to win the game outright.
To 100% win, yeah.
Yeah. It's the only situation, and that's a map that we won't be seeing in tournaments because that means
Generally,
the map is
but
completely broken.
that's like a staple of like competitive map design is that if there's a building on the map, especially a production building on the map, the competitive map designers have put it there for you to take.
Yeah.
I think you could have. I mean, this is like a completely different discussion, but I think you could have a map where you would skip capturing Iraqs if there's like a build very specific to like going for a cheese or something.
Well, we have like Valder on old Gilgamesh, where he decaps a village, so he skips the racks, but then he gets it back and gets as many units as he would have otherwise.
I
would say that falls into the like old Gilgamesh is not a good map.
That is an extremely specific example, though. That's not that's not generic in any way, shape, or form.
I do think there are like exceptions to that rule, though. Of like you can have circumstances where you skip production for a good reason, but
in terms of racks,
99.9% of the time you just want to grab the production building.
Because every turn you don't catch
specifically
racks,
the barracks,
it's usually less money you're getting overall over the entire game. Because it's a turn you're delaying village captures. Because the first turn you skip it, you might only lose like 100 gold in the turn after that. But the second turn you skip it, now you're losing something like 300 gold. Because it's the village of the original soldier, and then the second soldier will be 2 more villages, so you're already losing 300 gold a turn. So every turn you delay your racks, it completely destroys your economy. So it's usually not advised to do it.
Not just your economy, but your unit count. That sword could be the thing that stops your knight from getting taken by a pike, a dragon, another knight.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's potential that he had a strategy involved. I just don't think it converted well into this map. And it's unlikely that in any map that specifically this tournament runs, that will be a good strategy is to skip a barracks. Barracks in particular. I mean, it might be worthwhile to skip other buildings. Actually, on C&D, people skip the hideout almost all the time.
Skipping tower and hideout usually isn't a big deal.
But you can't skip a barracks, and you can't skip building more infantry, more swordsmen. So there's a chance he could have caught his opponent off guard, but I don't think it was the best strategy. But it potentially could definitely convince or put somebody off, especially in a tournament setting. So there is some merit to it. I just don't think it converted at all.
I also think like the misclick that caused him to build a witch means that he didn't even execute the strategy he was going for. And that's another 200 gold invested into a unit that could have been spent elsewhere. So if there was a strategy here, he didn't execute what he was like intending to, which is like another big big issue. Now we should probably move on because we've spent a lot of time on this match.
Yep, let's go. R7000 R7000 versus TimeKey. I can start on this one because I remember the match more or less. This was one of those matches where the fact, like R7000, I feel shouldn't have been playing TimeKey. I think this was a consequence of TimeKey losing matches where he shouldn't have. Because I think this was a pretty lopsided match where TimeKey he was the cleaner player. He was just playing better Wargroove, and that showed throughout the whole match.
Yeah, like TimeKey just kind of outplayed him, but like if you look on a skill level, TimeKey probably should have been like first or second in this bracket. So it's kind of big that he didn't make it out. So yeah, it's unfortunate for R7000, or maybe fortunate because he gets to learn since he was eliminated anyways.
Yeah.
So like to play a player like TimeKey is a good learning experience.
I guess like one thing I'd say is it's hard to pull a TimeKey when like you're Emmerich and every square is a mountain.
Or a forest, if it was a world before.
If there's a will, there's a way.
If there's a will, there's a way.
No, I will say, and we'll end up talking about this later, but I honestly didn't watch most of these matches, but that's because a lot of time I was trying to, quite literally, prepping for this map, just in case I ended up to get player 2 on this map for my game.
We'll talk about it when we get to their match.
I feel like we've said that sentence a good 30 times at this point.
Yep. Well, let's move on then. Fraudbrand Luis Barcenas. I think this was a more even match, but it kind of falls into the same bracket. I think Luis Barcenas is a straight up better player than Fraudbrand.
Yeah,
So
like Luis got top 8 last Groove of War, so...
Yeah. So
Yeah, Louis has a lot of experience, but he kind of messed up earlier on, like TimeKey, so he unfortunately was eliminated really early.
yeah, these players that got the upsets early on, later in the tournament, started getting these matches where the matches weren't really they weren't even. Let's just say that way. Now, having said that, I think this match was closer and way closer than the R7000 TimeKey.
Yeah, Fraudbrand in this tournament, he was playing like there was a lot of players in this tournament who really surprised us, and I think maybe near the end we should probably go over all like the notable players who got eliminated just to like pay tribute to them and maybe pay respects
Yeah,
because now they're eliminated.
yeah. A lot of people improved a lot overall during the game.
And I think there's even a prize category that the tournament admins have for like that where they can award, something based on that. And that might have been the last Groove of War, but I'm not part of
there's
the
definitely a
admins.
community choice. I'm gonna double
There's
check
community
that.
choice. Wasn't there like an admin's choice, or is that something else that I'm completely
There's-
missing?
I think there was
best
a
play
player
choice. Yeah.
Best play, yeah.
There's
Oh,
best
best play.
play, community choice, like random choice.
Oh yeah, so I'm sort of combining them together. Before, community choice was, just you could vote for anybody for any reason, and that's like Sejhun won that Groove of War 3 because obviously he deserves it because he's awesome.
Okay.
But there's nothing that like best play, that's like an admin choice on like the best play that's made, but it could easily be converted into, the underdog award or something along that. Like, who do we think honestly impressed us the most?
Okay.
But
That's kind of
a
community
different cover.
favorite.
Yeah.
True. I mean, half the community, or about a third of the community, is in the admin group.
Okay.
A third of the communities in the admin
I
group.
think
That's
we're
unfortunate.
I think-
Very unfortunate.
I don't know if that's true, but okay.
I don't
That's-
think, yeah, that isn't quite true.
That's not accurate at all.
Okay, let's move on. So the other two games in EST were DQs. So basically, Aponzeus and the Inferno got buys this round.
And
So-
Anpanze did DQ the previous round, so I don't know if there was a story about that or not, and then he showed up for this round, maybe wanting to play.
It was last week, I think there was a particular emergency that came up. And
No.
they just couldn't play. They did message me ahead of time and just said, sorry, like I actually just can't play
I
this
can't be
week.
here, yeah.
Okay. And honestly, I had a lot of high hopes for him because because his profile picture is an Archer profile picture, and
Nice.
I love Archer, and also his first thing that he ever said was boop, which is something that also happens in Archer. So I feel like it was. That's the whole reason I need to like somebody.
Okay.
I
It was
feel
very-
kind of especially bad for them as well because they only got to play once this entire event. Like there was 4 rounds. They DQ'd out of one of them, and they went up against 2 DQs themselves. And that's just like an unfortunate thing that will happen sometimes. But hopefully, like next time, we won't see as many DQs.
Especially for a new player. Yeah, that's you learn a lot in tournament matches. So
Yeah.
And at least like sometimes we'll have said I'll have like seen like because there was a couple of names that came up that were just DQ'd every round, or like after the first week DQ'd every round. So I've at least been able to like pair up people that I expect DQs to happen with each other, so they can at least play a match. So they'll get some experience, but
Yeah.
it's
There's
not
also
quite the same.
TYMs, and there will be more tournaments.
And
For people
I
to
don't think we've
participate.
discussed it, but we had a few, like we've had like what about 3 or so like consolation matches where 2 players who had their opponents DQ'd ended up playing together and
Yeah.
playing
casual.
like a match in a
Yeah. I
sort
will
of
be
trying to
Hinge
semi-serious
against
setting.
Headphone.
Yeah.
I remember Sneaky playing against Psychoia first week. There were a few cases of that happening.
Which is it's another great thing, you know. A lot of us in the competitive community, even if we're a little negative sometimes about play, like a lot of us are willing to play you and play our best possible against you, both because we want to have that feeling of winning, but also because we want other players to be good to challenge us.
Yeah.
And of course, that's me saying us, like as if I'm a good player. So let's take a step back on that. But
You won against Chu. Don't sell yourself short.
yeah.
So let's go PST then.
Yep, PST.
Headphone
Speaking
kill
of
sauce.
beating someone.
Go KillSauce. Explain your awesome strategy. How you could pull out that incredible win.
Whoa, hold on. Actually, I do have something for this. There was a metagame strategy involved with this. Now, there was. Now,
Please tell me more.
It's going to only confirm our complaints about the map later, but I wanted to play my match a little bit earlier, and I had both pinged him in the headphone in the Discord, and also like PM'd him saying, "Hey, do you want to play earlier?" And he didn't really reply to me, and I'm like, "That's fair. He doesn't have to reply." I mean, I know what time I scheduled it for, so I was like sort of waiting around for 4 hours. I'm just like, man, I really want to have a drink, but I don't want to drink before I play my match. And it was just this whole ordeal. And he wasn't replying, but like this whole time he was online and he was playing Borderlands 3 with his friends.
Great
And
game.
yeah, no, it's a good game, but I was pretty confident that he had not been watching strategy chat the whole day and watched this. He clearly had not watched the games beforehand, and I just took advantage of the fact that I don't think I pretty much said, like, I spent the day figuring out if I was player 2, how would I stop this particular rush? I did that.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, if I'm player 1, I'm going to do the first 3 turns of this rush, and if he counters correctly, I'll sort of improvise from there and do something else.
If he doesn't, I get a win.
Well,
But if he doesn't, I get a win.
The first 3 turns is just like normal play.
Let's not turn this
and
into
you didn't
a
even
map
go for the
discussion right
rush.
now.
But like this game was like identical to Bazik in that they both ignored HQ and didn't really think
And
about
Ash.
the opponent's next move. And then
Well-
Ash was a bit different already. Ash just gave 2 free defenders away.
Well,
Here-
I think we'll get there, because I just think that a lot of times there's a lot more leeway for error in defending. But we're gonna get to that on the map.
Yeah,
so,
we'll
anyways,
talk
there
about
is,
map
like-
discussion then.
There is
Yeah.
one thing notable about this match I noticed is that Headphone built a mage on the headquarters side, which he could have used to defend, and I actually think it would have worked. But
The problem was that
but
at
no,
turn 3,
let me finish. The mage literally just walked away from the headquarters across to the other side of the map and did nothing.
since I
like-
knew you were gonna go there, that's why I was interrupting. Sorry.
Yeah, it was just a
Well,
case
yeah.
of like He just like took one of his best defensive units and walked
Out.
it across the map.
Okay, then let me just say this. This is the defense that people that are defending, like Master of Map, that are defending this strategy has been completely fine. And this is the part that I disagree the most, which is when he moved the mage to the left, I was commentating with GimbleB, for those who don't know, and I said immediately, there's no knight on that racks right now. And he's not going to think that he's going to build a knight next, move the knight the most he can to the right side, and that will mean the game is already over if he moves the mage left. Because this is the hard point, right? He needs to understand that there is a play that in 3 turns will win the game. And this play right now, turn 3 by the way, is the play that is going to define the rest of the whole game. And
Well, it's actually turn
and
4.
he made that mistake and he lost. It's actually that simple.
Like it's actually turn 4, and it's not even really the knight. It's that if you give up a mage crit and a commander hit, you're gonna lose HQ in most circumstances, which is what happened.
I would need to recheck the game, but I'm pretty sure it was mage moved to the left, turn 3, and the game is over. And I actually tested it exactly like that during the game. I said the game is over.
I can honestly say that's like I was sort of hesitant. I'm like, oh, maybe he did see the strategy. And the moment he moved his mage left, I said,
The game was
I
over.
win.
Yeah, the game was over.
That is
It was turn
exactly
3.
how.
It was turn 3.
That's when I decided that I had won the game. The moment he moved his mage left, because he didn't like. Not that I already had the knight out, so or no, I didn't have the knight out.
You
on
didn't
turn
have
3. I
it's
get that on
super
turn
hard
4.
because you don't see the knight yet. You did like if you don't know it's coming, it's very very hard to understand that it's coming. Like
But you see, the knight actually doesn't matter because commander and mage crit is enough to just kill you.
no,
So
you
you don't
don't
have to
win.
see
You
it
don't
up
win without the knight. If he makes a mage instead of the
Yeah,
knight,
yeah,
he no
it
longer wins.
happened in.
He actually would have won even if he hadn't built the knight. Like the
No, he
Yeah,
needed the damage of the
the
knight.
mage and commander would have done it by themselves.
He didn't need the knight. It's true.
Really?
I don't think I needed the knight, but also is being familiar with the strategy and that
I'm actually
I
going to
think
open
he
the
could have
game because I don't
he
think
could have
that's true at all.
stopped it if he had built a knight in order to counter crit one of my unit counter crit and kill the mage that's in the forest that gets the crit. But you can't let that mage crit go off. That's the big thing. So you
Yeah,
almost
you
have to
can't.
sacrifice a sword for it. But that's just once again being familiar with the map. And honestly, I felt bad for it. And then after I was 1 turn away from winning because he hadn't seen it. He hadn't seen it a turn early and hadn't reacted in time. Headphone built some silly stuff like a wagon, and then I built a ballista. It was just a great time all around. But that map sort of almost goes back all the way to the start of this round where we just talk about the rush happened. Headphone didn't reply to the rush properly, and he lost. Does that make a flop map or not?
The weird
That's
thing
a later thing.
about Headphone's defense is that once the knight came out from your side, KillSauce, like he responded correctly to the knight. Like he had his own knight ready to crit that knight once it got in position.
Oh, by then it
So-
was over.
By then it was over. It was like if he hadn't moved the mage like that, he would have defended, or like he had a chance of defending. Whereas before, because he defended against like the knight follow up correctly, it was just.
But that was also, I think, what he did is like the moment, as I said, the moment he moved that mage to the northwest, I said, okay, well, I win. That was exactly what happened in my brain, and I decided that I won then because I'm like, okay, now his mage is not in a place to stop me from
I'm watching it right now, and I'll
doing insane damage on it.
Okay.
We also have to take into consideration that even if there was not this strategy, if your opponent is moving towards your stronghold and you move your units away from your stronghold, you will probably lose in a few turns.
Okay, this is the moment where the game is over. I think it should be on stream right now. Yep. Let me just.
Scroll down a little bit more.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get the image right. Okay, and this is it. This is the moment right after he moved the mage to the left. This is turn 3, by the way. And right here, there are no longer builds that you can do where you won't lose the game. If I'm seeing this correctly.
Yeah, you're correct.
From this point on, the game is already over, and this is turn 3 for Headphone. Like this is not
Yeah.
an easy thing to see if you have never
Actually-
seen this rush.
looking at it though, like even if I didn't know the rush was coming, I see a commander and a mage that could just walk up to my headquarters and heal, and there's no units of my own nearby.
Yeah, that's the problem. You calculate one turn and then you see that there's trouble, and then you react on turn 3.
And I think
it's
we
easy
need to
talk
end up having
after
this
it's
discussion
happened.
later. We should hold this picture up for later
Yeah,
because we need to get through the rest of this bracket. And there's only like one more game that happened at this bracket or something.
yeah,
Yeah, it
it's
was
just
Faded
one more.
versus Shu.
Let's talk about the Faded versus Shu first. Then we
Okay,
do
so
tiebreakers, and then we'll talk about the maps.
Moral of the story is don't mess with KillSauce when he wants a drink.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's about
yeah.
it. That's about it.
Play the match early.
All right. Now, quick sidebar to that. Me and Headphone beforehand, I told him like the whole reason I wanted to play early is because I wanted to drink, and then of course he actually recommended like, should we make this into a drinking game? He's like, but I don't have any liquor. I'm like, next game we got it.
Yeah.
So next time you might see some like AI versus AI quality matches versus me and him.
So let's talk about Faded Sun Shu. I think I just want to go first because I really want to say only want to say this. It's basically a case where Faded Sun didn't practice the match. It was pretty obvious. Shu was very practiced in the match, and he just won the game straight up. And I'll let you guys go after and say whatever you guys want to say.
I think Faded was a bit too passive, so he gave away like an income lead like very, very early, and then that just kind of snowballed. And Shu's the better player, so he really pushed it to the maximum.
I think it further goes on that I think I said this statement somewhere, and I'm quoted on it somewhere that if you don't prep, you're gonna lose. And Faded though is already in a bye for had already passed. He'd already won, and he straight out was quoted saying somewhere. I mean, I didn't quote it anywhere, but he said it that I'm not even going to practice on this map because I'm already in.
And he went first place anyway, even after losing this game.
Yeah.
And
so
also, like, they played Twins to because
yeah, I think Faded was completely trolling. That's why I don't really want to talk much about the
I don't
specifics of
think
the map.
Twins here is trolling. Twins here is pretty scary.
For Shu, that's true. Not for Faded.
For Faded, for sure.
Yeah, I practiced with Shu for this match. I know he had some kind of strategy prepared for this, but Faded was clearly out of it.
I could imagine that this map would actually play very well with a Twins mirror, and it'd be very dynamic and very interesting. But it would require both players to be pretty experienced with the map.
We know that Shu would ban like Vesper Caesar every game, and then Faded probably ban Koji and someone else. So like using Twins isn't out of the ordinary at all.
Sequoia's not here, so he doesn't have the bans on us. But yeah, the bans were honestly pretty standard.
I think I have the bans of that game. Give me a second.
I just don't understand why you wouldn't ban Wolfire. Like, for me, Wolfire is a picker ban almost all the time.
I mean, I ban Wolfire every time because my whole Steam share thing.
Oh, I don't.
And I do not want to play Wolfire. Or I can't physically play Wolfire unless I'm playing on my Switch. And I just don't want to fight him because I just haven't played him and I'm scared of him. And it's just he has too many options to think about at any given time.
Let's not go too much into Commanders, guys. We've talked about this earlier. Let's not go into Commanders.
That's okay, let's not go to Commanders. You're right.
It's just that we start talking about we can talk about Commanders at the end if you guys really want to do it. But the thing is, we start talking about Commanders. We're gonna be an hour into Commanders.
Okay, well, the next one we can go over every Commander in-depth guide.
Honestly, we'll have time for that in-depth guide because we still have to go for like tiebreak predictions.
Yeah. Next after this, it's tiebreakers. Before we go into the break.
So let's everybody get hyped for next week when we talk about commander balance, and everybody hates us for that.
I'm just gonna say my commander tier list video, which has been spot on so far with what we've seen, is literally my most popular video. I thought I would get so much hate for that, but everyone was like, "Oh yeah, this is awesome."
Because you say tier list and people flock. Like, look at like Smash Bros. How popular.
Shots fired! Shots fired!
Oh, I mean that's the thing though. Is like people like lists.
Yeah, it's easy to digest, right?
Yeah, and you can like agree and disagree. That's like a thing of like engagement where the thing you want with engagement is, even if it's negative engagement, people, like, as long as people are engaging with your content, then
It's awesome.
yeah,
all
like
good.
you get a lot of traction out of it.
I think Elodie is better than the twins.
Yeah.
Oh, we're not talking about commanders.
Yeah, let's go. Sedge versus Vito, tiebreakers. Who wins? I want predictions from everyone.
Oh, I
Let's
should
go.
explain the tiebreakers to people as well.
Oh, you want to
Yes,
do a
please
small
do,
explanation?
because I have
Go
no
ahead.
idea how they work.
Go ahead.
So basically, we have to decide who's going through, like 3 players going through from a group of 4. So the way we're doing that is the 2nd and the 5th seed and the 3rd and the 4th seed, which is like the people that are all tied. They play each other, and then the loser of those games play a game between them, and the loser of that gets eliminated. And also, this doesn't affect like the seeding. So like, if you're 2nd and you go through, even if like you lose one game and then win in the game after, like you're still going to be above everyone else. Like, we're not messing around with that. We're just like pinging someone out of the like
Out
this
of the top 4.
essentially.
Out of the 4 that
Okay,
we're
well,
supposed
I'll
to.
go first.
Let me just say one thing before moving on, because I think this is helpful to understand how the system works. It's basically all players keep playing against each other, and whoever wins the match is already qualified until one player has no one else to play. So you have 4 guys that play against each other. The 2 that win, we now go through. Then the 2 guys that are left play against each other. Whoever wins also go through. And the last guy doesn't have anyone to play against, so he is the one that gets the 5th place and gets eliminated.
It's like single elimination in reverse.
Yeah, you just keep moving people through until only one guy remains.
But what about we should just gimbal flip for it, honestly.
Okay, so I'll say that Alsame beats Data Gloves and Sejhan beats Vito. And then in the next one, based on that assumption, I think Alsame is gonna beat Vito. So or no, it's Vito versus Data Glove. So I think Vito's gonna beat Data Glove.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the safe bet. I would go with that assessment too.
I think the one match that is like going to be the most contentious is Sedge versus Vito.
Really?
I think, depending on how much practice Vito puts in,
unless Vito improves, which he hasn't shown this week, he hasn't played, so he might have been playing a lot better. But if he played like he played 2 weeks ago, I think Sedge has it. And Sedge already beat Vito, by the way. So I think Sedge should take this again. And I don't think the game last time was close.
Yeah, I'm gonna say too. I think Vito, even though he placed 2nd in Groove of War 3,
yep,
he's wildly inconsistent. I'd say arguably almost as inconsistent as Ash is, because it's just.
I think you're going too far with that. Yeah.
Arguably. He's. I mean, I know Vito is good. I've played games with him, against him, all sorts of things, and I mean, honestly, I didn't catch all of his games, but I did catch his Gilgamesh game where he just straight out threw like Elodie next to the enemy tower, and I'm just like, what do you? Is this your first game?
He got demolished by Sedge.
He did. He got demolished.
It wasn't even close. That's why I'm saying I don't think Vito can take Sedge.
No, I think the problem is I'm not confident that Vito's gonna ban Sedge, and I'm also not confident that Vito's not gonna use Elodie, and if he uses Elodie again against Sejhan, he's not gonna win.
I think Sejhan is the superior player. Obviously, Vito can take him, but I think if they played 10 games, we would get something like 8 wins for Sedge, and Vito would take like 2 games, for example.
I actually think Vito's the better player, and you play more games, and I think Vito would win more of them. And like, actually, you talk about Vito being inconsistent, but like, Sejhan is super, super inconsistent. Like, you look at his Chester medal results, and you can look at yesterday. He was playing someone from the general Wargroove server, and he wasn't doing well at all. So
I think he was.
Yeah, I don't know.
That game, though.
I think that's a matter of Sejhan taking it seriously or not. And honestly, he likes to have his fun, and he honestly does have his fun. So, but when he's
also like, when you're playing in a less serious format, like losing is part of like what you're gonna do. Like you're gonna try things and you're gonna lose because of it.
Yeah, and talking about a quick play match doesn't mean anything, honestly.
Okay.
So are we
I think-
all
I
in
think
agreement
Vito's
that the
gonna
gloves is
win.
getting eliminated?
Oh,
Are we doing the bold
Red
statement?
Jams, no, RedJams. I want to hear RedJams.
Okay, so I think Alsami would go through, and then Sedge and Vito. My money's on Vito, but I don't know how that's gonna go because I don't know what map they're gonna play on.
Oh,
then
so the
that'll go-
maps are Oblivion's Edge for like the first round, and then it's Iranian Labyrinth for the one after.
Which are two good maps for Sedge, by the way.
Okay.
Oblivion is really good for Sedge.
Because
I really
the more
like Sedge on
familiar Vito is with the map, the better he gets. Like way better. But then if he's not familiar with it, then he kind of is that inconsistent. But then that's like for everyone, so that's not saying anything.
I think he needs to play way
That'll
better
go.
this time against Sedge than he played last time. It's that simple. Like
I
way
think-
better, not slightly better, way better.
If he doesn't play Elodie and he bans Sedge, then I think he wins. But
I honestly,
if he doesn't
I think
do it both,
But
if he doesn't do both,
he
then
didn't
I'm
lose
not
because
confident.
he had a bad groove or because Sedge had a good groove. Like Sedge didn't groove the whole game. Like he had groove on the last turn. And the Elodie didn't groove the whole game. So I don't think it was really because of the commander choices. Like
I mean, if you just talk about pure tournament results, though,
he
you
had
know,
a yeah 6 months ago. Results really don't matter to me, honestly. I don't want to be mean about the prior results, like, but I think we can put that to bed right now. Like Ash, huge results in Groove of War 1, huge results in Groove of War 2, completely useless this tournament. And I'm not trying to be mean or facetious here. Like he had a poor tournament. I don't think looking at results that are so old is really a good way to say if a player is good or bad.
I don't know if I'd agree with that entirely. I mean, like, if you look at, we bring up Ash as the example, but he was on a downward trend the whole time. Like, he went winning the first one,
Second
top
place, the
four.
second one.
No, he was the top four
Top
the
four?
second one,
Okay.
and then top
third
eight
place he
in-
was top 8. Yeah,
So
third
like,
one.
there's been a downward trend. Whereas like Vito, for example, came second in the last one, and that's really the last result we've had from them. So
But we've
Like-
seen matches from him recently, and they weren't great.
that's true. But I
he
guess
plays
that-
a lot.
Oh, sorry.
He plays a lot against TimeKey.
That's true.
yeah.
Sure.
So
I
he
think
might be
we
used
should-
to like capitalizing on people overextending their commander. That's for sure.
One thing we have to consider is that we're starting to talk about a bunch of good players and comparing them relatively. And also, in some of the earlier tournaments, there were maybe fewer experienced players. The game was a little bit newer. There were some FTA concerns about some maps. There were some balance things that got changed. When Double Trouble dropped, Pike Treb wasn't a thing anymore. The commanders were more in line with each other. I want to say we have some outliers that are banned and some underperformers, but I think like you take the middle clump of commanders and they're all good under different circumstances. There are a bunch of them we've seen picked, banned, played, won, lost. In this tournament, we've seen a bunch of new players rise. Previous tournament players who have gotten to that top level of play. New players who have come in who are pretty good. I think we have the biggest pool of really good players that have come out in a while, all coming together. So maybe that's a factor to take into consideration.
Yeah, and like for the record, I'm not saying that I think Vito's going to win. I just think of all the matches that are going to happen in this tiebreaker, I think this will be the closest one.
For sure. Hey, Data Gloves might surprise us.
That would be
Yeah.
hilarious, actually, if Data Gloves beat Alsame.
I wouldn't be.
like-
I wouldn't be like. I think Vito takes Data Gloves, and he is the superior player. But if he gets to play Data Gloves, he might lose there. Like it's.
And also, I don't mean that as a way of disrespecting Data Gloves. I just like Alsame is one of the people I picked out to win this whole thing.
No, it would be super surprising if Data Gloves beat Alsame.
Yeah,
think
but
Yeah. I mean-
I did describe it as hilarious, which is a bit.
All of us are looking at this, and yeah, Alsame wasn't in Groove of War 3, but he showed his he showed his mettle. Yeah, it's a pun there. He showed his mettle in Test Your Metal and showed that he's actually good and beat a whole bunch of good players in that, just out of nowhere.
And he has been showing during this tournament. Like, people
Yeah.
like to look at what happened months ago, or Test Your Metal, which is async, which is our different formats. I think right now we're starting to have enough games where we can look at those games. Like, we now have 3 tournament matches where players had the time to prepare over a span that is 3 weeks. It's not like they played 3 games on the same day and you can say, oh, he wasn't feeling well that day or something. No, we have several matches over several weeks where most of these players we're talking about have been preparing for those several weeks. So there is some consistency that should be showing up.
That is true, but I'm also going to say there's the global pandemic thing has made some stuff crazy. I know for me, I've had a lot less time to practice since my job's been getting a little bit crazy as a result of that. So some players might be underprepared for reasons that they can't control.
I think it's also that it's a small sample size, and we haven't gotten to the really close matches from people. Like, for first and second rounds, a lot of the matches were more lopsided, so we don't have that much data, and not much of it is from players of equal skill levels. So once we get that, we can better assess things.
Yeah, we'll see.
Now, so I mean, if you're going to give me my prediction on this particular group, honestly, to me, Vito's been very disappointing, and I'd almost go as far to say that like his results in Groove of War 3 maybe not accurate. I mean, I have to accept them, but maybe not. But I'd honestly put Sedge, Alsame, and Data Gloves as people who get through, given their current play. I got to give the underdog some points. All right.
Yeah, Data Gloves is actually a pretty decent player. Like,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I've seen Data Gloves play some good stuff, and every game he plays, he's going to get better. And it almost seems like Vito is not. I mean, he's good, but he's not getting better. And
there's also
Wargroove's the kind of game where one mistake and you lose, and you're done.
Yeah, there's also the thing that we haven't seen. Like, Vito is one of those guys that was pretty much a long time out of the game. So he's definitely one of those guys that will improve a lot over time. And because he played such a poor game 2 weeks ago against Sedge, and this week it was essentially a non-game because we played 4 turns. Essentially 4 turns. We don't really know if he is improving to the level he was playing in Groove of War 3. And assuming he is already there, I think it's a mistake.
Yeah,
one thing to note is that just the fact that we're debating this and discussing this, and at least one of these is, if not several, are in people's top picks to go all the way. I think we can say that these are all pretty good players, and we're up for some very interesting tiebreaker matches.
Yeah, like any of
participation
those
medals for everyone. Yeah.
Like I think any of Vito, Sedchan, and Alsame are like serious contenders to win the whole tournament. So,
But
like,
I mean, in that
whatever
same regard, I don't count Data Gloves out, and I feel like Data Gloves, sort of like how Vito did in Groove of War 3, because I did not consider Vito to be a Groove of War 3 second placer, but he did. I think Data Gloves can just pop out of nowhere and just, in a short time, improve rapidly and come out with a win. I think that's a possible situation that happens, possible timeline.
And he has been improving steadily.
There is
Yeah.
also like this hasn't. I mean, Oblivion's Edge and Iranian Labyrinth are like older maps, so people have had more time to figure out stuff with them. But
Yeah.
something I've noticed is people will find stuff on maps.
Oh,
And-
don't expect that this week.
I
We
don't.
already
I wouldn't
found-
expect it, but like if something came out that nobody, I mean, like nobody expected like the stuff we'd seen on some of these maps.
Which ones?
So I would say before the flood, people didn't expect that to like come out. I mean, the map did
Well,
get
actually,
changed,
I don't know if that's
Actually,
true.
We
who
need to
hasn't
talk
given their
about
predictions?
that.
So we should give our predictions and then just immediately take a break and then segue
yeah, and
into
then when we
maps.
come back, go into maps.
But
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Let's
my
just finish
point is that,
predictions then.
like, if Data Gloves just sat and really like figured a lot of stuff out about the maps, I think there is potential for someone to just come out and like work really hard, and
Okay.
they've got the time to do that. So that's my point. It wasn't so much about the actual
Okay.
maps themselves. It's more like,
But I think the maps where it should be connected to this in particular to my predictions is I think Data Gloves will be extremely penalized for not having the same kind of experience some of the other players have on some of these maps. Like Oblivion's Edge is a map that was extensively played 2 months ago. And if you started playing more seriously, like last month, for example, you will be lacking a lot in that regard. And that can hurt your abilities to... It doesn't mean it will, but it definitely can.
yeah, that's fair.
Like, I will say, as like I won the TYM bracket, although Math beat me in our game. I will point that out. But I won the bracket for Oblivion that had like a lot of crazy people in it. I don't know if I should mention this in the podcast, but I'm not sure if I feel super comfortable with that map. A lot of stuff has changed. Like, even if the map is exactly the same, we've been like seeing new strategies, new commanders. I think I need to rethink everything about that map.
These larger we shouldn't go into maps. I'll say this after.
Okay, so do you have all the predictions?
I think that's a good sign. But yeah, I've given my prediction, which is Data Gloves, Sedge, Alsame. Bazik?
Yeah, I'm basically, to me, it's Alsame wins, Sedge wins, then Vito should win against Data Gloves. But
All right,
I think that's the match that's going to be more controversial.
The only one I would be confident about is Alsami versus Data Gloves. I think Sedge would beat Data Gloves if they went against each other, but like Sedge versus Vito and Vito versus Data Gloves, I can't really predict.
All right, Jams?
Okay, Osame, Vito, and Data Gloves. I don't know, my man convinced me. Just give him the underdog, dude.
It's underdog
Alright.
opinion, but I like that. I like it. Yeah.
Okay, so Alsame beats Data Gloves, Sedge beats Vito, and Vito beats Data Gloves.
All right, and Sneaky?
I think anything could happen, but just to put a guess out there, I'm gonna say Sedge beats Vito, Data Gloves beats Alsame, and Alsame beats Vito.
Oh, all right. Super underdog opinion, but okay. All right.
I like it.
I like it. Yeah, I like it. We
like
got
it.
some varied opinions there. All right, so let's take a break.
Take a break,
and-
yeah. 5 minutes break, guys. We'll be back in 5 minutes.
right.
So for the massive discussion on maps. Let's see if we can keep this civil. Welcome back. This is part 3 of the Groove of War podcast, number 2. We're gonna proceed and talk about maps now. So,
Boom, boom, boom.
dun, dun, dun. I think we should first talk about all the changes in a more general way, and I would like if Gimbal could start and explain the thought process behind why the changes were made, to give some perspective to some of the people who are not aware. Out of the 4 maps that have been played up till now in the tournament, 2 of them actually have had actual changes to them, and 1 of them has planned changes to them. And
Actually, 2 of them have plan changes.
okay, okay, so I'm not even that well informed. So okay. Anyway,
I'll start with the ones that were changed.
let me just finish. Anyway, I would like to have a small summary about why the changes were done, what's the thought process behind it, and then we can open up the discussion to everyone. Gimbal, go ahead.
So, the 2 maps that were changed. So, Gilgamesh, we noticed that there was a completely dominant strategy on the map. Volder would literally just win if you picked him, and the opponent didn't pick Volder. And like people might have some kind of pocket strategy, but 99.9% of the time, Volder would win. So Yeah, we were like, we need to make a change to this, because even if you take that aside, we were looking at other commanders and how they were performing and just how the map was playing out in general. And it ended pretty much in under 10 turns, and it was always an HQ base rush, and there wasn't a lot of like interaction between the two commanders. There wasn't really any interaction in the center of the map, so it kind of just felt a bit pointless it being there. There was some stuff to do with how the terrain was laid out that we weren't happy with. So a suggestion came in of what happens if you just move the headquarters to the other side of the map and force people to engage more across the center and across like the north and the south. We played some test games. It worked out quite well. It actually turned out that you could still pressure the headquarters in that circumstance. So it wasn't like it was going to turn into a super grindy game. It was still going to be a bit grindy, but it played better than like the original version. And this was a week beforehand. I think it was actually before the signups had actually finished closing, if I'm right. Or it might have
I
been
don't remember.
slightly after. It was either just before or just after the signups closed.
I think that's an sidebar. I think that's an important mark to say that all three of these maps that have or will be changed all had different circumstances involved. So I think this one is before the map was played on at all in a tournament setting.
On
Yeah.
this tournament, it was played on the Test Your Metal tournament.
Yeah, and that was
For a whole
another thing. It was in Test Your Metal for a whole month, and I looked through all the replays for that, and it just was like, yeah, we're not happy with how this map's playing out. So we changed it. They gave people enough time to really to get some practice on it. Like it was like a week's notice, and yeah, it played out a lot better. We thought like it was pretty good. Like, okay, some people might not have had as much time to practice as others because the world's.
Let's assume all the changes were improvements. I don't think spending a lot of time discussing the specific changes might not.
I
be
think with
super
like
useful.
Gilgamesh, you had like a kind of a larger issue that when like the HQ is like halfway between both Raxes, and one player can use the Rax and Commander to attack it. It's usually kind of you can get problems from that, which is why we moved the HQ to the other side. Alternatively, we could also push it back, pull it back a bit, so there's more. It's easier to defend, but this kind of eliminates the like structural issue, because now you have a commander and a Rax defending it instead of attacking it.
I know it's super quick sidebar, but Rax is shorthand for barracks, and there's some people who might not know that, so I just gotta say that
I've
right
had
there.
that question on stream actually.
Yeah, there's like from StarCraft, so I'm used to hearing Rax all the time. But
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. Like it is a shorthand.
By the way, I think I can speak for most people. Gilgamesh's changes were fairly well accepted by the community. So while it was a map that was changed after the fact, so the map was announced halfway through the Test Your Metal tournament, and then before the actual map was to be played, it was announced that the map was not satisfactory, so it was gaining some changes, and then all the changes that they had been talking about were implemented.
And now I will say it's not the ideal situation how that happened.
Let's go through all the changes of the maps, and then we'll interject with what we think about the changing maps halfway through, stuff like that. Because we might as well just go through the maps.
Yeah, I mean, like I do want to say some stuff on that as well, but I'll go to before the flood first. So there was some FTA stuff that was pointed out, and this is kind of a generally true thing. I would say like 99.9% of the time it's true, is that if the commander on player 2's side is like an action ahead, so in this case they take the barracks before player 1 does.
As the FTA counter, specifically. Like if it's intentionally as the FTA counter that you're putting the commander ahead.
Yep, you're right there. It should get 1 turn's worth of passive groove. This might not be the case all the time, but generally speaking, like after a bunch of discussion, like the map team was like, actually, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because otherwise you're creating situations where player 1 will have a strategy available to them that player 2 won't, even if they're going like opposite sides of the maps with their commanders. Like it will just play differently even if they do the same thing. So that was done. and that was generally like we considered that like a bug fix, right? Like
Yeah.
it was very minor change. And then the barge got moved. And this is where it caused the most problem, is because
Yeah, the mistake was that we didn't move the other barge into the same place because we're like, it doesn't matter.
Bazik, can you zoom in on that on the stream for the? I don't know if you can or not, but the before the flood.
Sure.
okay, well, while you're doing that, like
Yeah, while I fix
I
this,
think
you guys keep talking.
Matthew, you made a good point of like we didn't adjust the barges correctly, and that created like some serious first turn advantage issues. Player 1 could move their barge in a way that player 2 just didn't have available, and it created this bizarre problem. I think it created a few issues, but one of the big issues was that if you wanted to mirror player 1, you had to play out the beginning in a very, very specific way that didn't really make a lot of sense unless you like knew about it ahead of time. So it was like, I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. Like, you would have to do something that you would only find out, and it's not even like a rush strategy and a defending a rush strategy. It's like the way you play your capture phase goes against everything that like common sense will tell you. Like, you put a unit in a barge early and leave it there, which is
Well,
never really a thing that you would do.
to be fair, you didn't have to do that. Like, you're perfectly as good, might even be better not to do that. But I think the general idea was that, like, the intuitive way to play the map is to send the barge horizontally. And it's not that good when player 2 can't do that without getting into trouble.
So I think the gist is that, I mean, Bazik's still working on getting the map into place, but when it came to it, if player 1 went vertical, and this was before the flood 1.0, this is the original version. If player 1 went vertical, player 2 could also go vertical and not be behind. But
Right.
after the change they made, and it was inadvertently an accident based on the barge position, if player 1 went vertical, player 2 would always be behind on co-position, and that was supposed to be the first turn counter that was provided there, that if they should be ahead in commander, like if you're considering all things equal, that their commander should be ahead of where player 1's commander was. And like if they went horizontal and horizontal, it'd be fine, but the change made it so vertical versus horizontal, then player 1 went horizontal and player 2 went horizontal to, oh God, my words.
Okay, so either way, so player 1 has an option that player 2 doesn't, and if player 1 goes for that option, player 2 would be behind.
Yeah, that's the short of it.
Also,
Okay, just
go ahead.
So basically, there were two changes that happened. One of them should have happened, right? Like the groove thing, the groove charge on player 2's commander, like that should have been a change. That should have just been like the minor bug fix. And the barge change, we should have just left it, to be honest, like how it was before.
We should have just moved player 1 where player 2 is. Like, the only reason we left it is like, it doesn't matter, so it can't hurt to leave it. And then it did hurt to leave it not the same.
Player 2's barge got moved though, didn't it?
No, but the problem is we didn't move player 1's also.
Yeah, but I mean, my point is that if the barges had just been left where they were in the first place.
Well, then you had some FTA because player 1 had more options. They can do like an early commander rush, and player 2 can't do that.
Oh, right. That was STA, I thought. If you left the barges in the original spot, player 2 could have like done this weird commander horizontal rush.
No, player 1, because you had to. Player 1 can waste a turn by capturing the racks, but player 2 needs to start doing things with their commander. So.
But essentially, like, a mistake was made, and we realized that there were issues with the map beforehand, and it was like, let's try and fix this very quickly. It's a very like minor thing. It's more about locking out certain openings that were considered like a problem. So anybody that had been practicing the map on like a regular basis, but weren't going for those openings would still be fine. Like they would still play out the map pretty much the same way. But we made one mistake with like barge positioning at the start, and it just caused like a whole like cascade of problems after that.
I think
But,
what made it worse was the fact that the original version of the map had vertical barges because the barges were already in different spots. So that was changed to stop that from happening. So everyone assumed that vertical barge was no longer a thing. And because of this last change, that became available, and not everyone became aware that that was again an option. So it created this weird situation where the map changes were defining gameplay, which is usually not how we want this to go on, right?
Yeah, I mean, like when we went into this, like I was like, I mean, here's the thing: is we had like a very very short turnaround time on like what maps would be able to get into Groove of War. So like, I really really wanted like a bunch of really solid maps in the map pool that we wouldn't have to change, and it was just an unfortunate thing of there were some issues with the map. We considered them kind of minor at the time. We tried to fix them, and it ultimately like made things, I think, worse.
Kind of blew up on your face.
Yeah, and then here's the thing: is like when we fixed Gilgamesh, when we did much bigger changes to that, we ended up with a map that I think is actually really quite a solid map.
It's a really, I think it's one of the better maps in the whole pool.
So when we go in and we're like, hey, this thing just needs a really couple small minor tweaks, like let's just do that and it'll be okay. And then, oh no, it's like all going wrong.
Yeah.
Also,
was a
just
little
a bit of
Go ahead.
a bit of a disclaimer for the people like listening. Like we're gonna talk a lot about like first player advantage, second player advantage, but this is very different than when people, let's say you make a map and it's your first map, or we talk about the original Chucklefish maps and we say there's FTA, STA. It's very very different scale. Like here we're going to the real like nitty gritty, very very like this could be like after like 5 turns of figuring out optimal opening, we come to this conclusion. And the scale of it is like really minor. Like people are not losing games because of this scale of FTA and STA. It's just like minor advantages.
I think that's not always true. It's
That's
mostly
not true.
Yeah, it's not always true. There are some games that ended up being defined by it.
Look,
Yeah.
I gotta
not,
say
not
straight
really.
out, like,
There were other mistakes in those games that they were
It
way
doesn't
more
matter.
impactful.
It doesn't matter if there were other mistakes. It defined the match. Defining the match doesn't mean it's the end all be all, right? It just means that it changed the way the map would normally be played.
Yeah, I think like it did ultimately, like even if it wasn't the thing that decided games, it definitely decided how they were played.
Exactly.
So, and that changed a lot of things. And also, we changed it. We only gave people like 3 or 4 days notice on this.
Yeah. BTF
So
was
it wasn't
really
like
close, yeah.
Gilgamesh where we gave people at least like a week, I think. This was 3 or 4 days.
yeah, like I actually had this conversation with Gimbal when it happened because I had just finished practicing on this map, but I knew I was going to be at work all week, and then I found out the map had changed, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, I don't have any more time to practice." And then it was like, "Oh no, it's just a minor change. It's not going to affect anything." When I was practicing, I did not know vertical barge could beat horizontal barge. I thought for sure horizontal barge I would get there first, and then I was playing my entire game against TFJ behind like 300 on income. By the time I caught up, I couldn't. I probably could have still caught the Treb rush because they made a mistake in how they did it, and I don't want to get into all that. I lost. I deserve to lose. That's it. But it was really difficult to have the map changed when I couldn't practice anymore, and then see that strategy come out and have to play against that while on the clock.
Yeah.
Also, just to be clear, you weren't down 300 income because of the opening. You were maybe down like 100 income.
200
maximum.
actually, because it's a village you don't capture, because if both go horizontal, you capture the village, and that village is for the other player, so you're
Well, it's
actually down
100
100
because-
and he has that 100. So
Well,
you're
it's
200
100
down.
because it's the other corners. It stays neutral, so it's just actually 100.
So this is a little bit complicated, and I don't want to
No,
get
but
too
you're
far into it.
200
But
under the if
I
what you
want
would
to hear what
normally
Sneaky
do.
has to say, because you guys are like better than us. So we want to hear what Sneaky wants to say and how he feels as a
I-
less.
I think he went
Pro
through
gamer
pretty
player.
well what he wanted to say. I don't know if he wants to add stuff.
Yeah, just for the gold income. So 300 is an estimate, right? But like how I was playing at the time when that happened. First, I was thinking, can I take the corner village back? Can I fight for it? Map position said no, so I have to get the other one to keep things on income. So I have to dedicate troops down there, which means I'm not pushing to the left, which means I'm not taking those contested villages on the left in that top left corner of the island. But those are the villages I should have under my control, especially if I want to stop Tenri Treb.
No, you're
So
completely
it turned
right,
into
Gilgamesh.
this thing where like everything I was trying to do was to recover. And then by the time I could fight on even terms, it felt like it was a little bit
Yeah.
too late.
Yeah, and I think you were even more behind because you didn't react. Like this is a thing that I learned from StarCraft. When stuff you won't expect happens, you need to try and find the less damaging way of fixing that problem. And on my game, what I did, and I was exactly in the same situation where I didn't know about vertical barge, I just grabbed my own barge, put a soldier in it, and just went all the way around the map with it. And so the barge that I would normally not be using and that soldier was everything that I was losing. But you actually went the step ahead and you actually made a balloon and the balloon went down to do it. So you got it like a turn earlier, but you had more units invested into it. So it actually hurt your ability to play your own game throughout the rest of the match. It wasn't just the 100 gold that you were losing because you didn't have that village and the other player had it. It was because of all the changes you were forced to do it to compensate for that.
And I think this further comes into the point where all of us, especially all of us who lost, Bazik, me, and Sneaky over here, we all lost on this, and we all perfectly agree that we should have lost our matches.
Oh yeah, if you don't know something and the other guy knows it, he has an advantage. That's it.
And like this is a strategy game, so we're not like blaming it on anything. Like this is on us. We should have been aware of this situation if we were, amazing people. But it's just frustrating to experience, and that's a lot of the things that we're trying to avoid. I mean, I keep saying we, but I think that the community is trying to avoid these super specific strategies that you might have to follow in order to not just completely lose the game.
More than that,
I think that's a bit of an
like,
exaggeration.
I wanna come in here and say that like I think if this had been in the map from the start, everybody would just have like figured this stuff out, and it was like a largely due to like something that we considered a minor change and we hadn't predicted came out of like left field, and it just like hit us and it hit everybody who was competing, and it sucks when that happens because like you all are taking it very well. Like I would say, like you're saying, like you lost because like you lost like in a fair situation, like everybody had like the same circumstances, right? Of like you had the exact same amount of time to prepare for the map and all that, but it's still, it feels bad. And like I definitely, one of my things when I run events is like I want everybody to feel like they're in a good environment, and like I feel like I've let a lot of people down because of this.
Oh, you shouldn't feel like that. You shouldn't feel like that.
like
I understand where you're coming
just-
from, but you shouldn't feel like that. Now,
Also-
let me just say one thing, because I think it's pertinent to what you said. Like, the reason why usually people don't take this really well, and honestly, like, I'm one of those guys that I think, like, if I lost, I lost. Like, we all start from the same, like, we're all humans, like, that's it. But there's a good point always to be made in this kinds of situations where instead of the game being completely about the skill of the player, it starts being about your group of friends, right? Because if you know the guy that discovered that vertical barge was excellent, suddenly you have an advantage that the other guy doesn't have, not because he's a worse player than you, but because he doesn't know he doesn't have the friend that found it out, right? And time, if you give more time to the players, this kind of information is harder to hide, and it disseminates better between the community, so no one has this specific advantage that instead of being about the skill of the players, it's just knowledge. It's just something like, I know someone that knows this, so I'm playing ahead. I think that's why it makes people feel bad
think-
about it.
I want to hear Master
think
Map
we need
talk.
we need to keep in mind that like these changes didn't make the strategy like just appear or just to exist. Like this vertical barge stuff existed in the very first version of the map. Like in Test Your Metal, everyone should have, and could have checked the Test Your Metal games and seeing this vertical barge strategy. Like TFJ pointed out that the reason he learned about the strategy was from Test Your Metal. So this wasn't something new. It's just something we
But
didn't
it was
expect.
removed from the map.
Hold on a second.
It was removed from the map.
new.
It was removed
It
from the
was-
map.
It
was
wasn't removed.
definitively new. For anyone who came into the map when I did, this was new. I didn't play in that bracket of Test Your Metal, and playing in the bracket of Test Your Metal is not an obligation. That's like, you should have seen this obscure thing that had no direct relation. Like, some people are coming new into this tournament. They can watch the Groove of War videos, but they're not going to watch a Test Your Metal on the map when the map was different. The tournament page said this is the version, and that strategy didn't exist. Let me just be really honest about something. One of the reasons I took this really well is because I know where I could have won. I know what I could have done to win, and I didn't do it. I panicked on the clock, and I feel like that's on me. But if I felt like there was nothing I could do to recover from that situation, and if I had been eliminated as a result, then I would be a little bit less happy about it, because I was practicing on the weekend. I didn't have time during the week. It changed 3 minutes before the day. I think one of the reasons that a lot of folks, at least one of the reasons I'm taking this well, is because it didn't affect me in a too dramatic way. Okay, I have to play against Loveless now, but that's fair. I should play against Loveless. We're good players. That's more than fair. And if I want to win this, I have to play against them anyway. That's fine. It effectively didn't affect me. That's another way of putting it. I played against a good opponent. We had a fun game. It was great. I'm not like kicked out. I'm just second in the bracket instead of first. That's fine. But if this had happened like in the finals or something, and if the Tenri cheese was unavoidable if you did not know about this and couldn't react on like turn 1 or 2, then I think I would complain a bit more. Then I think more people would have had a problem with the sudden change.
Okay, well, the thing with the strategy, okay, well, I think the expectation is that even if you don't play in the Test Your Metal, you should watch the matches, because like that's what people have been doing, so you should be familiar with that. The changes didn't really like change the map that much. Like vertical barge was still a thing, and it was still a thing with player 1 after the changes. So people should have been familiar with it. Like I was familiar with it, and part of the reason we kind of missed it was because like I was testing it, and I knew a vertical barge, but after Test Your Metal, I wanted to like, or during Test Your Metal, I double checked the strategy, and I made some sort of mistake, and I found that like going horizontal always wins if you rush. And I don't know how, like I don't know what I was doing, but somehow I messed up my testing, and I reached a conclusion that horizontal always beats vertical, but it doesn't actually, and I don't know why I messed that up.
I
But
think
because I got that
go
wrong
ahead.
conclusion, I kind of carried that over, that it didn't matter later, so it kind of shocked me a bit.
I think
But-
there's. Go ahead.
But like we already had the evidence of the strategy, and if you paid really close attention and you observed that vertical always beats horizontal, then once the change was made, that made only player 1 capable of going horizontal, going vertical at, or they could go vertical much faster than player 2 by like a full turn. Once you have that information, you could then do what TFJ did and realize that player 1 actually can get an advantage out of this.
But that's what I'm
So-
saying. I did not have access
Let,
to
let,
that
let me
information.
just go, because I really want to. I really don't like this idea that Master is spreading here, where as long as you know about it, then it's fine. It's just a piece of information you should have known. I really don't like that idea, because I don't think maps should be designed where any amount of information you can get, any specific amount. Obviously, if you know a bunch of things that give you huge advantages, like that's fine. But no single piece of knowledge should allow you to get very far ahead. And
It's
I
not
think
very
that's the
far.
problem we're talking here. Like, no, that's completely not true. Like, I'm going to talk about Sneaky's game because I don't want to talk about mine, because people might think I'm talking about my personal thing and I'm getting feelings into it. Look, this is not the case at all. Objectively looking at TFJ versus Sneaky, Sneaky was behind, not a bit, was behind full stop for like 9 or 10 turns of the game, and the game ended right after it. He could have recovered, that's completely true, but he was behind because of it. like full behind, not slightly behind, like you were saying, like 100 gold behind. No, he was the 100 gold behind. He didn't have the gold he was expecting to have from the build he had practiced during the weekend. So his strategy was completely wrecked because of it, and he had to modify the places where his units were. So he was fully behind throughout that whole experience. And that is something that, personally, I don't think it's good for a game. Like, a piece of knowledge like, okay, instead of going horizontal, I go vertical, and now I have a huge advantage over my opponent. That shouldn't happen. It should be like, you know something the other guy doesn't know, so you get a small advantage out of it. And then if you know a lot of stuff the other guy doesn't know, then you get a lot of small advantages, and you convert that into a win. But that's not what's happening right here. Right here we're talking about getting huge advantages out of small pieces of information, right?
First of all, there is no huge advantage, even if you go horizontal, like into vertical. Then you'll be down 100 income, but that's kind of where it stops. Like, you capture that village, like turn 5. So people don't plan out their builds all the way from turn 1 to turn 7. So this 100 gold didn't wreck SneakyDragon's whole strategy. So even if you decide to go horizontal against vertical, where you can actually just calculate to see that you're actually slower, it's not a huge advantage. But like, let's say you do see vertical, you didn't expect it.
What do you call huge advantage? Define it, please.
You can calculate to figure out that you'll be slower and send your barge south. And if you do that, then the advantage is really, really tiny.
You can continue, but I need to know what you're calling huge advantage.
Huge advantage, something you have to either win on or gets you like a lot of pressure.
Okay, unless it finishes the game outright, you think it's fine.
No, if it gets you pressure or a lot then that's good enough.
I don't want to go too much into this because I'm kind of the median opinion of you guys. I think Bazik is completely right that it gave a huge advantage, and it was a piece of information that I would have had. I should hope I would have had if that map, the one that we were using in the game, was what I had been practicing on. But on the other hand, and also math, it did give a lot of pressure because we're talking about 10 reaches, and having your army near to the left of my stronghold where I usually occupy that space. When you're doing 10 reaches, that is the definition of huge pressure. But alternatively, like, none of this is TFJ's fault. TFJ played a great game, executed a great strategy. I don't want to take anything away from their win. I'm just saying that from the perspective of a tournament, changing something a few days before when might not have time to practice in those remaining 3 days, maybe because there's an epidemic going on and work's a little bit busier. That's not usually a fair situation for the player who then can't practice on the new map.
Okay, well, I have to make something clear. And this is on the old version of the map, if player 1 sends their barge north and player 2 sends their barge horizontal, then you're going to be behind in the same way in either version. So it has nothing to do with the fact that you played on the new version. The big difference with the new version is that if player 1 sends their barge north and player 2 sends their barge south to mirror them, player 2 is 1 turn slower. So it gives player 1 a minor advantage. So the north versus horizontal is still exactly the same. So if you're calling the advantage that will give you huge, you should have known about it because it was there in the original version when you were practicing. And that version got no stronger.
If that's true, I definitely should have known about it, and you're right. I asked everyone in the beginning whether or not vertical barge was introduced in that last minute change. The answer I got was yes. So if that's true, you're right. I do not know.
The answer is the map makers tried to remove vertical barge. And they might have failed, and that was the mistake. But saying that it was expected out of everyone to contemplate vertical barge is simply not true.
I mean,
because the designers themselves didn't want vertical barge.
But no change was made to stop vertical barge. I don't know what you're talking about.
What are you talking about? The barge started in the middle of the map. Before.
So the thing there is that vertical barge existed in the original version.
It was the original version. It was a vertical barge.
Yeah, so here's the thing. Vertical barge existed in the original and in this current version. The problem is, because of the way we moved the barge on player 2 side, it gives the idea that you can go horizontally, right?
I think it gives the idea you should go horizontal.
Yeah, no, that's it. That it gives the idea that you should do that, and objectively gives the idea that player 2 cannot go vertically based on the position of the barge.
It's put in the opposite side. It's not in the middle. It's like the B2 barge is horizontal at the start of the map.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Like, it should be in the exact same position. Like, both barges should be in the same position. And they aren't. So, ultimately, that came down to it was a mistake by the people on the map team. And...
yeah, fuck you, map team.
But, I mean,
We
this kind of
appreciate the
stuff
map team.
happens, right? Like
I'm not.
I lost
I'm
my
not
match
putting this
because
down
of
you
that.
guys. Like, no. I'm not saying that at all. Like, the map team is really great. They put in like a lot of hours to make this
They
stuff
do.
happen.
They do. They're honestly
do.
real good, so I can't complain about what they do.
I honestly don't think the
And-
complaint here is against the map makers or whatever, or against the players that won. That's none of what I think anyone here is talking about. We're just discussing a problem that happened, and that's it. Like, I don't think anyone is hoping that we go back to the past and change anything. Like, stuff happened.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
it.
I guess,
no.
like, let me reword what I said then. It was a combination of the map was changed last minute, the map team didn't spot this particular issue, like, becoming an issue. The map testers also missed it as well. It's just one of those, it was a culmination of, like, a bunch of very small things, and it led to a lot of people having an advantage when ideally, like, this shouldn't have been the case. Like, it should have just been changed so that both players were forced to go horizontally. And, like, we're going to talk about, like, upcoming changes. That is the change. Like, it's going to be that, like, the barges, you won't be able to do this vertical play. You'll have to play horizontally if you do this.
Well, in fact, Faded put out a new version, so where the barges are in the same spot. So that is how it's going to be. But, like, I could even, like, shoulder some blame, because if I didn't mess up my testing in tester metal and got the wrong conclusion, then I would have said right away we have to match the barge positions. But I was one
So
of the
it's-
people who said you don't have to put P1's barge in the same spot because it's vertical barge doesn't work.
So it's Math's fault. Okay.
Yeah, it's
all right.
Math's fault.
No. There's no blame here. I don't think any of us are blaming anyone. I don't think that's
It's
the
a
point.
joke, guys. Calm down. It's a joke.
For the viewers watching, this isn't about blame. This isn't about consequence. Nothing's going to change. We're just saying that we're talking about the fact that the map was changed and what impact that has, and whether or not what we should do going forward in that
Yeah,
type of
these
situation.
things should be talked
Yeah.
about. It's not.
I think endgame. I think in all situations on these maps, especially considering turn-based strategy games, none of us disagree with that statement. That yes, every person who lost on the map after the change, it's their own fault. But does it feel unfair or not is a subjective opinion that we all want to talk about.
Yeah, and I think going forward, like, I mean, this is the thing we've done with, like, talking about, like, the changes that are going to be coming to maps, is we're not going to do a change to a map, like, 3 days before the round, unless something horrific happens with the map, right?
I think if I'm gonna give my suggestion on that is, I do not care how much testing or how little a map has. As soon as those maps are announced, they should stay as is throughout the whole tournament. Have map bans throughout the whole tournament if needed, because it might happen that one or two maps get completely broken up. But it doesn't matter. Don't change the maps. It just creates this weird situation where you try to fix it, and sometimes it will work wonders, like in Gilgamesh, and other times it will be like really, really weird, like
I think in
before
the
the
case
flood.
of Gilgamesh,
So you might as well
it was like
not touch anything.
we changed the map so soon.
Yeah,
that
in that
it-
case, it might be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, like, there hadn't been any tournament rounds. I believe it was before signups closed, so, or it was like shortly after they closed, right? Nobody was, like, going to play their matches at all. People still had a lot of time to practice, and we just said,
Yeah. But I
We
think
had to make
Aurelian
this change.
Labyrinth also got some changes before the tournament started. Because there is an Aurelian
Yeah.
Labyrinth, an original one, and there's another one which is called Official, which is the one that we're actually
You just have
gonna
to look
play.
at the post on Discord and download that.
Yeah.
That's how I view it.
I think the
But-
problem isn't getting the map right. The problem is that you risk having some players practicing on the wrong map because they downloaded the maps early on, for example, when they joined the tournament. and then they get to the tournament, the week the tournament is going to be played, and they find out that the map was changed, even if it was changed two weeks prior, right? They just assumed that the map was fine, and they just practiced the way through that. Which honestly, I'm glad it probably didn't happen, but it could have, right? It could have been the case that someone just downloaded the maps like a month ago when they joined the tournament, and then they got to the tournament, the day of the tournament, because they don't really spend all that much time on Discord, and suddenly they go like, "This isn't the map I was told I was going to play at." So it creates some weird situations, right? When you start changing stuff after the rules have been established.
Yeah, and I think like one thing we considered, which I think is what we're probably going to do in the future, instead of like making minor adjustments to the map, is we just pull the map. We would just put a different map.
Yeah,
in
that's
its
also
place.
an option of it. Putting a different map is not good, because it creates the same problems, right? Suddenly,
I want to hear what Matt has to say about this.
Yeah,
I would say we should probably move to the next map, but Groove of War 4 was kind of exceptional circumstances because the update just came out, and even though the update was out, people didn't really want to test maps. So other than Iranian and Oblivion's Edge, we needed like 4 maps, and we had like maybe 2 weeks of people and a few people willing to test. So we didn't get as much testing as we would have wanted. Like for Groove of War 5, we're getting it like at least 2 months worth.
Oh yeah, I'm
probably
up for
like
testing
3. So it's a lot more testing.
Yeah, like this is not going to happen again in the future, and if it does, we'll have a lot more.
That's another thing.
Stuff in place of.
Showing the maps that will play in the tournament early on is actually helpful, because it allows people to start checking the maps as soon as possible and finding the problems early on.
Yeah, I think for Groove of War 5, what we might do as well is we might say, here's 10 maps that we're considering for this event, and this will be way before the event's even announced.
Then people vote on it?
I would say like people could just go and play on them. And we'll just say like go play, like everybody go play on them and like give us feedback.
Maybe we should move to the next map, because we spent like a lot of time. I think we already talked about everything.
This is gonna keep happening.
Alright, so let's go to Cloak and Dagger then.
Okay.
You just said forbidden words.
No.
Is that like tempo and tech?
Now this is where I think the disagreements will actually happen.
So here's the thing about Cloak and Dagger. Like before we go into anything, so we looked at the map and we got some feedback on it before it even like the round had been played, and it was a kind of almost similar situation to Before the Flood, where it's like, do we do anything with this map? Like there was a consideration of do we make some changes, and after having seen what happened Before the Flood, we said, no, we're just going to leave it, and we're just going to let people figure stuff out. I don't know how people feel about if that's the correct decision or not.
It's now on screen.
Well, like on Cloak and Dagger, I know what happened is there was the game in question was me and Burke in Test Your Metal, and I did something to what similar to Bazik and Headphone did, where I just kind of abandoned HQ. I actually just forgot HQ was there, so I just didn't put stuff there, and then I actually ended up like not losing the game because he misclicked, but I basically lost since I moved my stuff away. But yeah, it wasn't really deemed to be a problem because I just moved my stuff away and didn't think about HQ.
Okay, I think this is the poster boy for what I was talking about earlier. The first 2 units you make from your side racks determine against one of the strategies if you win or lose.
Well, first off, side racks is going to be, because this is going to be a point of contention for the whole
No,
conversation.
it's on screen. There are top and bottom racks and 2 side racks. It doesn't matter which side you pick. You can pick player 1 or player 2. The problem is exactly the same, even though player 1 has a specific FTA strategy to stop that specific strategy out of player 2. But we'll ignore that fact. I don't think that's really relevant, especially because a lot of suggestions to fix that problem have been already talked about. But what I'm pointing out here is what I was talking earlier, where a piece of knowledge, in this case, knowing that you need one of your first 2 units needs obligatorily to be defending your headquarters by turn 4. And if you don't have any unit there by turn 4, you lose the game.
It's turn 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
No,
have to
by
build
turn 4, if you
four.
don't have it ready to defend, at turn 5 you're dead. It's
But
what
you
happened
should-
with the headphone game, where turn 3 he moved the mage to the wrong spot, and he died because of it. That's how it works. In turn 3, you either move to defend the headquarters immediately, or against this specific strategy we're talking about, you lose.
You
I'm
have
gonna
to
stop.
have-
I'm gonna
Oh,
stop,
You
Matt.
have to have a unit onto the forest next to the HQ.
Oh. We didn't even talk about what the rush was. We need to show people what the
Oh,
rush is.
I'll put it on screen. I still have the image.
Right, but
So-
you didn't talk about what the rush was.
Well, Sequoia's
So-
gonna do some magic editing, so
No, I'll
They-
put it right now. Don't worry.
Okay.
Magic editing.
Don't worry.
Okay, who wants to explain the rush?
Yeah, you can start explaining the rush. I'll just put the image that I
Not Master of Math, because he's an underdog opinion in this.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely.
You didn't hear us
Okay.
earlier when we were talking about that.
I'll explain the rush. So the idea is that player 1 will first capture the racks. Then they'll build a mage, move their commander and the mage to the right, capturing the villages as they go. The commander will be able to heal off of the newly captured villages, and possibly also the village they still own, depending on what happens, near the opponent's stronghold. A knight is built after the mage, and the knight can get into crit position very quickly in about one turn, as long as one still owns that village, the number 4 village right near the stronghold. The knight will be able to crit it 2 turns after it's built. Whoa, we moved all of a sudden. The image changed.
Now you
Hold
have
on,
the
let's
image of
get
what
back.
happens. Like, this is the rush almost complete. And by the way, this game is over. This is turn 3. P2 is playing.
So this wasn't.
This game is
exactly-
over at turn 3.
This was a modification of the rush.
No, the rush
Like-
is the rush is perfect. The only thing it's not perfect, it's not
Okay, well,
far.
this right now isn't a rush. This is just normal play. Like this is what I do every time as player 1, player 2, and test your metal.
No, I'm
It's-
not. That's
it's-
what makes the rush so good. It's because you can actually eject it at any point.
But this isn't a rush. You haven't even built a knight.
The headphone game is a bad
no,
example.
this game is over.
Headphone
This is
and Bazik
perfect.
game are a bad example.
No, they're not bad
it's just
examples.
Ignoring.
This is perfect. This is perfect. The game is already over. I don't know why you guys think this is a bad example. This game is
Oh,
already
this is
over.
the kind-
Here, I want to interject. It's a bad example because like you don't even need a knight to win at this point. Like
No, you need a knight.
move,
If you
No,
make
he's
a mage
moved
right
it-
now, you can
No,
win.
you don't need a
You
knight.
don't need a knight.
like he's actually just won with the units that are on the field right now. Like this is a mistake on Headphone's part because
You
not
sure?
because
If
of
he
the
makes
night
if he makes a knights back to back right now, he's gonna die.
Well, that's
he
what
didn't
happened.
make
He
a
hasn't
knight.
built yet.
Or maybe
no,
he
that's
did.
not
I
what
don't know.
happened. That's not what happened actually. I think if he makes knights back to back from now on, if he doesn't have a knight on the back of this, I don't think he wins.
Okay,
I'm
so
gonna check the
Headphone-
game. I'm gonna check the game. I'm pretty sure he
made
did.
a knight. Headphone made a knight now and next turn, but then by then it's already too late.
All right, let's talk about the math here. So a full health commander will do on average 40% to a stronghold. And we've got, I believe, 34 coming in from a mage crit. That's 74%. If the HQ regens now on about, so you subtract 74, you're at 36, you're on 46. All you have to do is hit it with the commander and most of an alchemist.
36.
Yep. So just hit it with the commander and oh, even better, yeah, 36. The commander hit takes it because your commander will have regened almost all the counterattack damage from the stronghold. And even if you low roll it, the alchemist can finish it off. Even if the alchemist gets hit, the alchemist can still finish it off. You don't even need the knight at this point because you still have enough damage to take out the stronghold. If you leave a stronghold exposed, you could take it out with swords or harpies. I literally went through this in like my unit guide video, just how much insane damage random units do to the stronghold. You cannot let it get surrounded ever.
The thing is, you can also like look at this position as player 2 before moving everything, and you can see, okay, what is player 1 gonna do? He's gonna use the mage to cap the village, and he's gonna move Ragna to heal. So if you just think about that, then you know that your HQ needs help. And just in general, if you have nothing around an HQ and a commander and a mage which can get a mage crit is there, you're gonna be dead. So
This is turn 3. This is where we said where he built a knight to defend it, and even then he couldn't
It's
stop
irrelevant, yeah. It's completely irrelevant.
So
That's
it
the
would
whole
require
problem.
a turn 2 play. At turn 2, he would have had to have a unit to defend one of the squares that I could attack headquarters from.
It's simply not good when you need to know that a specific strategy can kill you this early.
You don't need to know. You can calculate this. You
can figure it out.
turn
Sure,
to-
yeah. I'll tell you the same thing. I'll say now what I told you last night. You can blind a person and play randomly, and as long as they play enough games, they can still win. Like, the fact that it's possible doesn't mean it's reasonable to expect players to do it.
It's
And
very
what we saw
reasonable.
yesterday was no one did. Like, you're saying it's very reasonable, it's obvious, but no one did. Like, the examples we have is people who didn't know about it and didn't have the right build randomly to defend it. They just died, all of them.
Okay, well, no, we have two people who died to this abandoned HQ. We had Bazik versus.
We had three
Vito,
people.
and
We had Headphone, Ash, and Bazik, and then we had
No,
Ryle
Ash is
Alexander.
separate now.
No, Ash lost the same way.
Ash
Ryle
was
Alex-
the Wolfar. It's the Wolfar cheese, which is totally.
It's not a totally different thing. Like, you're just cherry picking. Like, it's so insane how much cherry picking you're doing right now. Like, I can't. It's almost unbelievable.
Whoa! Can we not turn this into personal, like having a go?
This is there's nothing personal about it.
No. Let's turn this into the positive thing. That I honestly think Master Math is maybe the best player, maybe second best player, arguably between him and Chu. So I feel like you're giving a lot of personal bias that a lot of people are as good as you and think how you think, and they don't. And yeah, of course, that's on them for their fault that they aren't as good as you. But a lot of people don't think 3 turns, 2 turns ahead. You know, like, honestly, this is a 3 turn ahead play. And even our map makers do not think 3 turns ahead about cheeses that happen. Even the people who test for cheeses, other than you, do not test for 3 turns ahead cheese.
Well, I've tested for 7 turns ahead when I was planning a cheese once, but that was a very rare situation.
And I'm completely certain you were wrong.
Oh no, I was right, it worked. It was suicidal, and my opponent could have stopped it.
Oh,
but
he could have stopped it. Then you were wrong, right?
Then it's not a cheese.
It's not a cheese.
it was totally a cheese, because
No,
I
it's
No,
not.
turn-based
It's not.
strategy, it's not a cheese.
It's not a cheese. If he could have stopped it, it's not a cheese.
It's a cheese. It's like cannon rushing. You can stop cannon rushing technically.
Yes, but if you do not prepare correctly, you just die. That's how it
Exactly.
works. That's why it's a cheese.
That's
It
why
relies on the other
it's
player
not about
not-
whether it's
The
unstoppable.
reason
it's about
why
whether it's
wait.
unstoppable if you don't know.
I can help with this definition because I've experienced several years this specific definition. A cheese is a strategy that relies on your opponent not knowing something and exploiting that fact to win. That's why it's a cheese. If your opponent has the right piece of information, it doesn't work. And that's why it's cheese. If that wasn't the case, it's just a normal strategy. It's actually that simple. Like 6 pool in StarCraft isn't a cheese. Because the other guy knows that 6 pool is a possibility. Now if he doesn't prepare for it, that's his problem. But it's not an actual cheese. A cheese relies on your opponent not knowing.
I would say it is because, like, the moment your opponent knows that it works, it becomes like it just stops working. Whereas, like, so if you lose to a 6 pool because you don't know, like,
This is the moment I agree with Matt. Like, if I died against a cheese in StarCraft, I would consider that completely my fault. It wasn't even slightly my opponent's fault. It was totally on me because I knew what he was doing. I knew how to stop it, and I just didn't execute properly. It was completely on me. Like, I can call it a cheese all day long, but like, it's still my fault. I had all the information I needed to defend it.
Okay, well, the other thing also is that like this opening that player 2 does, which can potentially turn into a rush. Like, I played this every game in Tester Metal, and no one left their HQ open, so no one lost to it. It was you didn't lose to it, Bazik, and Sequoia didn't lose to it, and nobody lost to it. So it's not something that's so hard. So there's this, which is just like regular opening play, and then there's the Wolfar. With Wolfar, it's very, very different because he can get groove like at a very precise moment. and he can clear the HQ.
It's
So
a
you have to
stronger
play
version
really
of this.
precise to not lose HQ. But for everyone else, you just have to not abandon HQ, and you're fine.
Honestly, if in the same Wolfark conversation, anybody who has fast groove that can deal flat damage like Nuru, I mean, Nuru would also be broken in this situation.
You should.
Oh hell yeah!
You should not need to defend. Yeah, like the consequence of not moving your first 2 units out of your racks improperly should not be losing the game. I don't think this is very controversial.
It's not your
like-
first 2 units; it's like your first 3, because you have your FTA counter.
Even if it's your first 3,
unit.
it doesn't change. Like I still consider it, like like the first 3 units shouldn't decide the future of the game.
Well, let's look at common sense. You have an HQ. When is it ever a good idea to abandon the HQ when you have a commander?
On the
coming
first
at
few
you?
turns, that's the standard in almost all maps.
Nobody abandons HQ if
That's the
commander
standard
can
in almost
attack
all
it.
maps, man. All maps are work like that. This is an exceptional map.
I
In
mean,
that
actually,
regard.
like
They-
the thing there though is like, if I'm going to interject again because I've talked
Go
to a
ahead,
bunch
go
of
ahead.
different map makers.
No, you guys need to talk more. I've been talking way too much.
So this is actually, and I mean, like not this specific thing, but this concept of like the headquarters are going to be quite vulnerable. on some
immediately
maps.
vulnerable. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a thing. Like, and people are going to have to like, we're going to introduce maps again that like have not this specifically, but similar concepts of you just need to know how to play the early game. Like that's going to happen again in the future. And
I don't think this is good design.
I think also you have to keep in mind that like on this map, like the HQ seems a bit vulnerable early game, but it's very easy to cover. And after that, you have so many units that you push the other player back.
This is
They
only a
can't
problem
go
the
for your
first
HQ
times, yeah.
anymore.
I agree that this is only a problem the first few turns of the game. The thing is, I do not like that the game can end suddenly like this. This is something. This was an actual discussion over many years in StarCraft, because a lot of people like this kind of nonsense. I almost curse right now. A lot of people really like this kind of nonsense where, well, I know this, the other guy doesn't know, I just win. I do not care, I just get to win.
This isn't some
but
secret
what
strat.
happened?
This is
It's not about being secret. It's about exploiting what the other player doesn't know.
I mean,
This
you say
would be
that, but, like,
horrible for quick play, for example. Horrible. You get a new player playing this, and he gets cheesed like this in quick play. That's a good way to make people stop playing your game. Like this, it's the kind of thing you don't play for general play. For tournament play, there are ways of making it work. What happened in StarCraft was, even though some people liked that games suddenly ended right at the start of the game, they eventually decided it wasn't good for the game as a whole. Now, in the
you
case of
say that.
Wargroove, I don't know what the decision will be made in the future, but that's a completely different conversation.
I mean, I think this is also like one of those cases where, like, you can defend this, and it's gonna rub a lot of people the wrong way. And also, this is the first map in a tournament that we've had that has done something like this. Okay, like Lurker's Den, there's a rush, and we saw that in the Groove of War 3 finals.
Cytosis.
Cytosis. Yeah, Cytosis was another one. Cytosis had a
But
bunch of other
Cytosis
issues as
was about Nuru in particular.
That is also true. But I mean, I think Cytosis had some other problems.
I think this
too.
map with Nuru is probably unplayable.
You could do crazy stuff with Valor also. Like if they just abandon it, if they don't protect HQ, then Valor could just like hit it and then use Groove.
No, but I think this map is probably unplayable with Nuru. Like, actually unplayable.
Oh yeah, like
Yeah, there's no question there.
Yeah, it just becomes an unplayable map. It's that kind of good map.
You just push east and win, and that is it. There is nothing that can stop that Treb in this universe.
But that's a lot of Neuro gameplay. You can't stop it.
there you'd have to do some very, very specific map design decisions to make a map not.
A lot of
Nuru
maps are
cheesable.
a lot.
Next
of
week,
maps is
next
really
week we'll
hard to
talk
cheese
about
up
how
Nuru,
map
actually.
designers don't design around Nuru.
That will be an awesome discussion next week about commanders. Because I
Yep.
disagree with the Nuru shenanigans that people complain a lot about. I think it's a lot about map design and people wanting to make specific map design decisions that are really, really good for Nuru. And so people think Nuru is way, way better than she actually is.
But are
You got an
sure about
underdog
that?
opinion
Like,
over there, sir.
Oblivion's Edge has an HQ that it's preferable to go kill the racks at the back than kill the HQ. And Nuru Treb is still insane on Oblivion's Edge. So I don't know about
So as far as rushes go and cheeses go, it's controversial, right? I love
Oh, you like
you're
that?
breaking up. You're breaking up.
games.
Go ahead.
Sorry, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, go.
Yes.
So rushes and cheeses are pretty controversial. I think we've definitely covered that. I personally like cheese strategy, use them, and I'm not going to get mad if it beats me. Like when TFJ beat me with a cheese strategy, I was like laughing because that was such an amazing 10 replay, and I was glad that I got to see a cheese happen in the game. But obviously we talked about some other stuff with that, but just for the cheese, I was enjoying that cheese. But like a rush like this, where you have to go crazy and spend like hours figuring out how to try to stop it or solve it, I don't think that's as much fun. So that kind of thing I'm against.
That's only the Wolfar. Everything else is really easy to stop. Wolfar is the only one you have to be accurate and you have to know what to do. And it's only as P1 for Wolfar. And it's only against not Wolfar, not Valder, not Mercia. Because if you're any of those, then you can just stall on your HQ and kill the other HQ.
I don't think you should be saying like, oh, it's only P1 Wolfar. That would go into a conversation where we might need to talk about this map being either for sure being FTA or for sure being STA, since there are options that are exclusive to each side.
It's not options
like,
exclusive. If you have Wolfar player 2 and player 1 goes for this rush, then you just kill their HQ first.
No. The thing is, as player 1, you can actually get your mage to the top village on the left side, and you can't do that as player 2.
There is definitely
there are strategies that are specific to each side.
Yeah,
that is a bit different. That's just because what should have happened, because you could build a sword or mage turn 1, is that you have player 2 is ahead of player 2 commanders ahead of player 1 commander. We use like the counter on before the flood. Use it here, and then you solve those first turn, second turn advantage.
Yeah, but that's my whole point. Like you're saying right now we have P1 and P2 can do different things. I think that's a kind of a different discussion. That's not about this rush specific. It's the map itself that probably needs some changes.
So like to kind of change this into a more like positive thing, like in going forward, it's clear the map needs some changes, right? Whether it's like doing stuff about the rush or whether it's fixing things to do with like first turn advantage, like player 1 can definitely do things that player 2 can't if it tries to mirror.
But I don't think this map needs changes. That's the thing.
Well,
I think the discussion that needs to be had is, do we want this kind of gameplay on Groove of War tournaments? That's it. If we want this kind of gameplay, we should have more maps like this. If we don't, we shouldn't have maps like this. Because I don't think the map is bad. Like you'll never hear me that. Like I had really good matches on it during practice. The problem isn't the map being bad. The only part that I personally don't like is I don't think there should be extreme fall-offs because you don't have some pieces of knowledge. I like when the advantages are taken slowly. Everything you do moves you forward into the game, and you get more and more and more ahead. Sure, there is the commander is a win condition, and you might fall off suddenly because you misplace your commander, but that's a very specific thing that you have to manage every single game. In this case, you have to have some specific knowledge from this map. In BTF, the same thing kind of happened, even though it wasn't as aggressive as in this case. And that's the decision. If we take this as good gameplay and we don't mind games ending in 5 minutes, then the map is fine. Sure, you might change like FTA a bit, and instead of giving the player to a soldier, you might need to give it a mage first turn. But like, I don't think that's a big change to the map. I think the map more or less behaves the same way.
I think like when I talk about FTA stuff, it's more about player 1 has the option, if they build a mage early, they can go and capture that village to prevent the opponent from like knocking it down and then heal, or not even knocking it down, like capturing it with their mage and healing with their commander. Like you can lock out your opponent doing certain things, which player 2 just doesn't have that option. So I think that's the kind of thing I'm meaning when we talk about that.
Yeah, I think the FTA, STA changes, I think definitely are needed if this map is to move forward. But those things I don't think are controversial at all, right? I think everyone wants maps where player 2 is as close to player 1 as possible. And
yes. I actually like maps where I actively need to decide whether I want P1 or 2, and I feel strongly differently about both. I know a lot of players say asynchronicity, one player has the advantage.
Yeah.
But I always go back to KFO. I love KFO because I actually have no idea if I want to start with that mage or start as sword or a mage. I don't know. I don't know which is better. We used to think it was FTA. Then we thought it was STA because of this balloon thing. Then P1 could actually do a balloon thing. I think we've ever solved KFO.
Well, if you really,
There is
I
that
think easy to figure out which is better on KFO if you really want to figure it out, because it's one racks. So, one racks and small, you're gonna have FTA, STA. That's a given.
I mean, technically, you could solve any map if you.
I
think-
don't think that's true. You can solve any map that ends before something like turn 8 or 9. After
You can't functionally
there are
solve
too many variations for you to say that a map is solved.
I do think that what Mass is saying though about barracks count is kind of important, where like one racks is always going to have issues, like most of the time. At least in my opinion, I think it's actually really, really difficult to balance a map around only having one barracks.
I
think this game is heavily based around like a ground army.
I don't know about that.
you can
I've
make a map with
actually
just one
found-
racks, like Minotaur plays well.
If it's a big map, then you can have like reasonable balance. So like Backlash might be able to be pretty balanced because the map is pretty big, even though it's one racks. But if it's small, then no, you nothing you can do really. You
But
can try to minimize it, which is what the maps do, but you're gonna have something one way or the
I've seen more FTA problems with 2 racks than 1 racks. If anything, because of
I would-
the way the FTA counters are balanced. Among the differences, usually one player gets to move their commander and the key racks, and the other player doesn't. Or getting the commander a turn early matters more than the build because they end up facing that property first at that key time. But with 1 racks, there's more definitive alternation commander and racks, and stops that situation from happening. So personally, just from playing, I've been more happy being either P1 or P2 on some of the 1 racks maps.
like there's a reason we don't see KFO and we don't see Minotaur, and it's just because like the one racks maps you're gonna have the imbalance.
No,
So that's
Minotaur is
not
definitely
really true.
imbalanced. Like you guys have convinced me on that. We were able to science past it, but I am convinced that it has a stronger position, even if you can defend.
I would like to push back against the argument that bigger maps have better balance. I think what happens with bigger maps is it increases the size of the map, and as the map gains length, any imbalances that are natural from the map itself kind of vanish in a sea of so many other things happening.
Well, yeah,
So
exactly.
it's easier to balance bigger maps, I would say, because of that.
Well, yeah, exactly. Because any tiny advantages you might have, because I can get this first, or my dragon that I build on this turn gets to this area. The moment it's bigger, all these tiny things just kind of evaporate and don't matter. So it's like it's not really a controversial thing to say. It's easier to balance for larger maps. Just the issue we had here is like if we're restricting ourselves to 30-min chess timers, anything that gets even like decently large is becomes a difficulty. So like No Man's Wharf we couldn't really do, Lunatic we couldn't really do, Asgard Rising we couldn't really do either.
No Man's Wharf is
Butterfly.
quite a bit smaller than Lunatic, though.
I think No Man's Wharf is more an issue of it's kind of like a lot grindier.
Yeah. No Man's
No.
Wharf, I think it would
No
be
Man's
playable
Wharf
in a
is-
tournament. I think
No
it would
Man's
be
Wharf
playable.
is less grindy than like Rustic and Before the Flood.
Now I wanted
I am
to see
so
if
bad at that map.
I want to see if RedJams has anything to say about all
Yeah,
this because he's been kind of silent.
Okay, so my opinion for this is, you know how in like chess, right? Like the top players would know every single opening, at least up until a certain point, right? And every single player prepares because, you know, if you don't prepare for that, you're gonna lose, right? So
Yep.
the same thing's happening here. Like if you prepare for that, you could get away with it and you might even be ahead. But the problem only comes in when it's really hard for you to prepare for that because you don't know about it, and the way you respond to that would take longer than to invent that like rush or something. right? If it takes me like a day to figure out, oh, I could rush the HQ by doing these 3 moves. But then if it takes me like 4 days, at least, to just respond well to the HQ rush, but lose out, then well, that's a problem, right? Because the other guy in the meantime can be like, oh, in my rush opening, instead of doing that, I could do something else. So they'd be ahead and preparing, right? So you want to let that room for people to know more than the other person, but not punish them so much that, oh, if I don't know how to respond to this, I just die, I guess.
So you want to increase RNG?
What?
No.
How did you take
No.
and that from what he said?
No, I'm just messing with him. I'm sorry. I just want.
I think what the Red said made a ton of
RNGesus.
sense. Like,
Yeah, I agree with RedJams.
for me, basically what I like about what I like about good cheeses, or what I consider good cheese, is exactly what RedJam said. I can spend inventing 7 turns of awesome cheese. But if my opponent sees it coming and it is telegraphed, they can stop it, will stop it, and I'll actually be at a disadvantage, and they can figure out how to stop it in maybe 10 minutes. I think that is a legitimate cheese. And there is stuff like that in the game, where you could rush in an unaware opponent, and if they stay oblivious for like 5 turns of you telegraphing what you're about to do and they lose, that's on them. That's a good cheese. If you win like that, good on you. You read the situation correctly. But if you have to spend like days figuring out how to calculate this one thing, and that's just this one response to one thing, and you will definitively lose if you can't do that and you don't do that ahead of time, we ain't got time for that.
I don't think the definitively lose is necessary. Like, you guys keep going into the you need to lose for it to matter, and I
You're
wouldn't
right.
go that far. Like,
No,
like
you're
the
right.
barge
You're right.
thing,
Right.
like the barge thing is a thing that it's like turn 1, the other guy went vertical, and you're like, I usually go horizontal. I have no information that going vertically is good. And now you need to start calculating everything that will happen for the first like 3 turns while the barge moves up, and how does that affect you? How you're now going to move your barge vertical, because that will change your whole build. So you need to calculate all those moves to compensate for the new vertical barge. So just the fact that the other guy moved vertically suddenly changes your whole strategy. Like, the implications are quite large for such a simple decision, right?
I
Well,
should
no,
have
you
chosen my
can,
words
like-
more carefully there. All I meant was that effectively, and then you instantly lose, and then you are put at a big disadvantage.
On Before the
Effectively.
Flood, you
A big
spend like 20 seconds. You double check. Okay, if I move my barge horizontal, do I beat them or do I lose? And if you lose, then you send your barge down. Now on Cloak and Dagger, I think the thing with the HQ pressure is that it's very intuitive. Like, you look at this map, you play it once, and you realize, yeah, if they don't do anything to cover HQ, I can actually attack HQ. It's not some mystery strat that it's a secret. And like the Wolfar strat, I understand is a bit more niche because it barely doesn't work, but it can work if you don't respond right, and it's with one commander only, so it's a bit niche. But otherwise, like the HQ pressure itself is pretty intuitive.
I have a question
You
for
should
you.
know it's possible.
I have a simple question. Is there any other map in the last 3 months, which is how long I've been here with you guys? 4 months now that we're in April, started in January. Any maps that have played in 2IM or now in Groove of War where you can lose, like straight up lose, like turn 4, you actually know the game is over. The game is not technically over, but the game is actually over because there are no available plays to actually lose. Is this map, or is this not an exception in that regard?
I think this is the
Or
Cytosis is the only one I can think of.
That's not in the last 4 months.
Gilgamesh, Minotaur.
Minotaur is not in the last 4 months.
Also, you could make an argument like if you mess up the opening on CAFO, you already lost.
CAFO is
Like
not in the
Deadlock.
last 4 months.
Okay, but we're still playing on it.
I'm
Like,
ta-
we
I'm
had
ta-
it in events. We
No,
had it in...
not in the last 4 months.
we had side events.
I'm
Like,
being-
we had like 30-second journey and...
I'm talking. Yeah, 30 seconds. Okay. Yeah, someone else,
Like-
somewhere, like in quick play. Come on. We're talking about. I'm
Bert-
talking about
Bert does say
2IM.
Gilgamesh.
Gilgamesh, you don't lose after 3 turns. You
Yeah.
haven't lost the game after 3 turns.
Rustic, you can like lose like turn 5.
Hey, guys. I actually have to hop off in a sec. Do you mind if I just say one more thing about
Go
map
ahead, go
changes
ahead.
before I do?
Yeah.
So, as I guess apparently the poster game for this barge thing, I think the barge thing is pretty much covered. We've talked about it. I'm sure, TFJ gets credit for that game. They won that game. They deserve that game. I deserve to lose. I made mistakes in that game that cost me the game.
I hate the word deserve.
All right, yeah, I lost fair and square. How about that? I lost
That's perfect.
fair and square. Fair and square. I made mistakes and I lost, and I could have won if I did not make those mistakes. That had nothing to do with the barge. It was there was dog placement, and I didn't spend enough time on some things. I made mistakes. We're good on that. The main issue is changes. Personally, just as a player, it's a little difficult to have last-minute changes. But like, I really appreciate everything the map team is doing, understand why everything happened, and I think everyone's been doing a really great job in this tournament. Just wanted to say that because we've been having some really heated arguments about stuff, but just wanted to lay that down. Like, I really, really enjoying this tournament so far, and I think it's a lot of fun.
I mean,
As
like,
far as-
could I just give like a quick response to what
Yeah,
you just said? I think going forward, everybody's on the same page, and that's, I think, is the very important thing to come out of all this. Is like, we on like the tournament team and the map team, like we all like agree with like what you're saying, and like we don't want to see stuff like this happen again, and we don't want to see like last minute changes happen again.
yeah. Like, and at the end of the day, I probably would have lost anyway. That was really solid cheese. It was really, maybe not, maybe so. Who knows? It doesn't matter. That was a good game, and I just want to make sure we've been talking about it so much. The game in and of itself, absent of the changes, was a great game. It was solid.
So, should we move on to something else? Do we want to talk about the maps in other respects, or
I mean, as long as we don't talk about C and D, I think.
I mean, I just want to say, like, there are going to be like a couple of changes coming up, right? So like before the flood, like we mentioned earlier, we're going to move the barge, and there's like the vertical opening is going to be gone. So it will play horizontally. We will give everybody enough time to like actually practice this. We basically said nobody start their best of 3s yet. We'll do the announcement, and then everybody has time to practice, and then they can decide when they're going to play their best of 3 up until the deadline, which is going to be more than a week. So there will be time. And then C and D, if there's changes coming to that, which I think there will be some minor tweaks, then they will also be this weekend, and they will be announced. Like, and people have enough time to adapt. From this point, though, players do have bans. So
Is Sneaky still here?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Because I want to ask a very quick question of yes or no
Yep, sure, go ahead.
for everyone, and I would like for you to answer, which is, do you guys think that the fact that the games ended so fast yesterday, so many of them, that it affected the quality of the stream as a whole, the presentation of the tournament? In that regard, not in terms of actual gameplay, skill, ignore all that. Just the experience for the for everyone else, for the people not actually competing, right? The people just watching, just enjoying the tournament.
Got it. All right, so my answer to that would be, I think we didn't see it coming, and we weren't prepared to cast that as being a fun, exciting thing. And I think we weren't happy that that existed. We didn't expect that to exist. And that came through, and as a result, the stream was less enjoyable. But for a completely layman audience just watching Wargroove, oh look, the HQ won, is mainly what they're thinking. If we're talking about a less than competitive audience who just want to see a fun game, we could have portrayed that as more exciting, more awesome. Look at these quick matches. I don't know if that would have been a good thing, but I think our own disappointment came through on the streams. I think our own concern that maybe that wasn't a healthy thing came through. Other than that, and I also think if the matches are all that short, yes, it's a little bit of a problem. but not always. There are some times when it could be fun or interesting, just as long as we move on to the next match immediately after that. That's basically my opinion.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, let's go counterclockwise argument here. Math is next.
I don't think.
Sorry, guys. Do you mind if I drop off?
Sure, go
I'm late
ahead.
for
Wait. Before you go, tell everyone who you are, what you do,
To like and subscribe.
and tell them to go to your channel.
All right, I'm not gonna say like and subscribe, KillSauce, only because I've had a few people tell me that they are super glad that I don't do that. So I've just been avoiding doing that.
I think you should like and subscribe to Sneaky Dragon.
And I click the notification bell.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ignore the people that say those kinds of things.
All right. So hey everyone, I'm Sneaky Dragon. I do some I like a beginner tutorial videos on Wargroove, as well as some competitive guides. If you're interested in getting into the competitive scene, I've been producing some commander tutorials. I've got some commentated quick play matches, commentated competitive games, though not as many as the Groove of War channel. They have a ton now. Check it out.
Sneaky's
so
the
look me up
best.
on YouTube.
Sneaky's
Sneaky
the best.
Dragon, Wargroove. And as always, welcome to Wargroove.
In all caps.
All caps.
Yep. All right.
All right.
All right. So, who is going after? KillSauce, I think you were about to talk.
No. It's math. I'm doing a reverse alphabetical order.
Oh, okay,
Reverse
okay.
right to left order.
I don't think it really negatively impacted the viewer experience. I think, like, for the most part, like, the games against equal skill players we saw play out like normally. And I think the matches were pretty good.
Okay.
Gimbal?
Uh,
Oh, no.
RedJams.
RedJams.
yeah. I think that it was not the greatest because it's like watching chess and then like a whole bunch of matches just end me. And then if someone was watching that, I was like, that's it. That's the competitive scene. You just do a 4-turn checkmate. But then the thing is if you allow like room for people to rush, then people get really excited, right? It's like, oh, normally this map goes on for like, 15 turns and then someone times out or someone overextends. But then if you see someone just like going in on turn 6, like, well, this guy's doing a really cool strat, then of course it would be great. But then if everyone does it in 4 turns, it's kind of stale because it's the same player won and it's the same response, or you don't respond and you die. That gets stale. That's my opinion.
So,
All right.
so
think it's
me
Gimbal
now.
now. Yep.
Ooh, I'm gonna have a complicated answer.
Those are the best ones.
So I think because we had a mixture of games, if all of the matches had been rushes, then it would have been like horrible. Like it would have been terrible. Like that would have just been completely unenjoyable because we would have seen the exact same build come out every single time. And like I watched early StarCraft 2 GSL where
Yep.
it was like people pulling workers on one base and like doing all ends all the time, and that was exciting for a bit, but it did like taper off because you're just like, oh well, this person's just doing the same rush every single time. I think one of the problems, I'll go with this first. So like the matches where that the rushes didn't happen were really good, really enjoyable, really interesting. I think Shu versus Faded maybe being a bit of an exception because Faded wasn't trying as hard. And you can kind of just tell because he knew he was going through. That was probably the exception, but all the other matches where it was like a bunch of interesting things happening, and it wasn't just the rush, like those were really good. And because of those matches, like the entire thing, it contrasted with the rushes. Like it was like interesting because of that. I think one thing that really hurt with these rushes was the people who were doing the rushes were always fighting people that didn't know how to fight against them. And that I think was like actually the really bad part, was we never saw the rush fail because the people who were going for the rushes most of the time were up against people who just didn't know how to play against it. And I think that was the bigger problem than the rush itself. Now, one thing I'm kind of curious about is like if we see this map come up again in the future, because like some people are going to want to play on it. I mean, I know Matthew said you're not going to ban it. I don't know if you're still here.
Oh yeah, I'm still here. Yeah, I really like this map. It's like really dynamic and it's really exciting, and you have a lot of options.
Yeah.
And you can really find ways to win, which a lot of other maps it might just be hard to get objectives and to get advantages.
Gimbal?
So yeah, like I think I'm very interested in seeing the future because let's say like there was a whole bunch of rushes this round, which there were, and like we were kind of like somewhat disappointed by like the amount of people just dying, because it is sad when you see someone on turn 3 basically just completely abandon their headquarters and you're just like, well, they've lost because their army's just completely out of position. So when you look at, or like in the one case, like someone tried to do a weird defense on it and it didn't work out and they just kind of lost the game. What I think is going to be very interesting though is if, let's say, we go into the future rounds and some people do play on this map and try the rush and fail, then I think you have a nice overarching story where, okay, like these earlier round matches weren't very interesting, but the people who then went on and played the map more in the future had interesting matches where like things just sorry, I'm getting distracted by Sneaky just typed something in Discord chat. I think that will be really quite cool as like a longer term story, because I was listening to this podcast recently between two casters and they were talking about how like esports is just storytelling, right? So when we have that opportunity of loads of people die to this rush early on, more people are typing now.
Go ahead and speak, don't read.
Yeah, we're distracting you.
Oh my god, everybody's just typing now. Because we then have like a longer story, okay, maybe some of them, like a bunch of the matches were disappointing this round and weren't the best thing to watch. When you go through into the future and some really interesting matches happen on that map and you see the rush get failed and you see people do things like banning Wolfar because they just know that like that's commander they shouldn't let through on this map, then I think you get like an interesting thing from a viewer perspective. Because like people who said, oh, I watched the early round matches and it lost, and like I saw just people getting rushed all the time, when they talked to someone who did watch the matches later on and they're like, oh yeah, like people were trying doing that rush, but people figured out the counter strategy to it, and like the people doing the rush ended up losing and it was a close game, then I think that creates like a very interesting story as well. But that all depends on like whether that happens, right? Because I mean, what we might just see is nobody like ever plays on Cloak and Dagger again, and like that's my I was gonna say 2 cents, but it's a bit more than that.
Gimble done.
Yes.
All right, so obviously Gimble covered a lot of the points that I wanted to cover, and I see merit in both sides of the situation. I will arguably admit that Groove of War 4 is a kind of new community, and maybe they're not ready for advanced strategies, as later we might talk about Mori maps and how complex they are. Maybe not advanced for that, and maybe they're not advanced for this particular strategy where every player sees every turn and every player's their average skill level is not good enough to counteract this. But I see, you know, in it, let's fake estimate 6 months. I see this map being a pretty good map because people have already figured out this counter. Like, just don't abandon your HQ. Or if you see somebody building a mage turn 2, you just send your co down. Like, that's sort of the counter to it. So there are plays against this in these particular maps. It's just whether or not, as the community as a whole, do we have time to grow and experience all these particular experiences in these situations to justify the growth of community. And in some ways, I think that this sort of cheesy rush strategy in round 4, where we expect the games to be the best, is the right way to play, because maybe that's the right way to play the game, is to rush the HQ every time, and maybe the map makers have to redesign around that, or maybe the players have to discover their counter to map rushes. So I think there's merit in all situations. Obviously, from a viewer standpoint, maybe it's not as interesting, but from a evolving meta standpoint, I think that there is some merit in all decisions made.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it. And transmission.
Okay. I'll just finish up with no matter what the reasons are, what I do not want to see is get to see, like, if this would have happened if this map would have happened in the first week of the tournament, what we would have seen is from the middle of the brackets all the way down, or no, the first week, because we have seeding, it would have been worse. It would have been 100% of the games, all players, more practiced players, would be opening with their commander and mage to the horizontally, and knowing that if the other guy, usually a less skilled player because we had seeding, not knowing what to do and just losing the game outright. And I don't think that's a healthy environment. I don't think it creates good games. I don't think this knowledge game where if you don't know something early on, the game just ends. I don't think it's that good of a viewer experience. I think the oh no, he's going to get rushed is amazing when we're talking about the two top players in a certain game. Like I've had that experience, right? I'm watching like the two of the best players of a certain game, and you see one of them is cheesing hardcore, and you go like, oh no, he's doing that. But the reason why it's so exciting, it's because you know that if the guy that's being cheesed at any point understands what's happening, he's probably taking the game. So there's this back and forth, this tension, where you know something can change, and all of a sudden it can turn around on its head. And I don't think that's what we were seeing this week. What we were seeing was basically one player didn't know, he just lost the game was over, let's go to the next match. And that was it. Like, I'm just gonna go out there and just say it like this. I don't like when all the noobs get crushed turn 5 or turn 4. I don't think it's good for the game. I don't like when I see an ex-Groove of War champion get eliminated turn 5 or 6 because he didn't know how the opening worked. Because even though he's not well trained, he's not well practiced, he doesn't really know the map, I still don't think he would normally lose like that in most maps. And I think that's a feature of this map which creates a kind of game that personally I don't think is as enjoyable. I would have had a field day today on this podcast if Ash had lost in a full 14 turn games. Like, it would have been amazing for discussion. This way, he just lost to a cheese he didn't know about. And that's it. That's the story. And well, I don't think that's as good a storyline to tell over a long period of time. I don't think this round will be well remembered if I'm saying it in another way.
Okay, well, I think we're kind of going over well-trodden ground, so maybe we should. I think we should move to talk about because in the next few weeks we're going to be talking a lot about the players who advanced and their successes and all that. But I think Swiss is done and players have been eliminated. I think we should talk about the people who have been eliminated because they're not going to get much talk about them. Like, I think there's some players who got tough brackets or did well but didn't do well enough to move on. So maybe
there is one thing I always want to say to what Bazik said is we make a deliberate decision when we choose the maps for each round to keep the simplest ones, like in terms of like the amount of knowledge you need to know. So like we generally open like the simplest map first week, and then we try and go for the second simplest the next week, and like so like you would never have seen a Cloak and Dagger week 1. Like
yeah,
we wouldn't.
Yeah, I understand. No, but it was a good thing we had so many DQs. Because I think if we had less DQs, we would have just had more games like this. Especially in the EST and PST games. Because in the GMT, those newer players would probably not have known about this strategy. They're just not involved enough to actually know this. Like, I consider myself a pretty involved player in the community, and I practice quite a bit. And I had no idea about this strategy all the way up until like 30 minutes before my game. That's on me, obviously. And I think most of these newer players would not have known it. But this would probably have been like a major factor in those lower skilled games for EST and PST. So I don't think the fact that it's 4th round really changes much. It changes a bit, sure.
No, I mean your point was that like a lot of those people would have maybe even like quit the tournament or something if they.
Oh no, that was not my point. I was not saying people would leave because of it. I was just saying that it would create a bunch of bad games.
Okay, so the players that really impressed me but got eliminated, I would say would be Captain Rainbow, also known as Rika, Spacefront, both in GMT, and JR Smash in EST. Like, I didn't expect much from most of the new players, but they really impressed me and played much better than I thought they would. And I think some of them, or most of them, should have actually moved on.
I can agree with that. They had hard brackets in front of them too, so.
To add to what you're saying, like some of the new players did make it through, which I'm also really impressed by.
Yep.
Oh, but I just wanted to kind of like focus on the players who didn't make it, because everyone who made it, we're gonna be talking about a lot.
Oh, I agree. It's just a case of like, I think in general, like we saw a lot of really great play out of the new players this tournament, and like I do want to go back to your point about like we should highlight the people that didn't make it through, but just in general, like we've seen a lot of newcomers come in, and I think that's like a really great thing to see. So yeah, that was my point that I just wanted to make.
I'm trying to get to the.
Yeah, I'm looking at the things too right now.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to the attendees to, because I know there are more guys that are really enjoyed up until now, and like newcomers that I think even if we were going to talk a lot about them in the future rounds, I still think they deserve their little spotlight. Guys like I Will Be an Inch, I think deserves a huge spotlight.
My underdog player. I mean, if we all want to end with this, our own personal opinions of this. My underdog player of the tournament that didn't make it past Swiss is definitely Spacefront.
What? I thought you said Apon Zeus.
I mean, I like Apon Zeus, but he only played like one game.
Okay.
Yes, but Spacefront lost to me, lost to Vito, and lost to...
Spacefront shows at least an understanding of the execution and mechanics of the game that I can respect. Even if he might have been the one who created this whole... And I know others will disagree with this, but he was the one who created the C&D Cloak and Dagger strategy about the HQ rush with Wolfar. I feel like his understanding of the game is a good thing to have in the community. Anybody who can come in and functionally break a map for like 90% of the players, that's a good part of the community. That means they understand the game. Maybe they don't have the experience to translate that into an everyday match scenario. But I think that as a whole, like you take that skill and you nurture it. And I mean, I consider Spacefront like easily, if he just practiced more, would be way better than me.
Okay, respect.
That's not hard. Come on.
Yeah, really, it's not hard, but
come on, I had to do it.
I'm like the third best player in this chat right now.
I mean,
guys, this is all in good fun. Don't take this to your grave. Come on. Sneaky's no longer here. We gotta put a post-it on top of everything we say.
I want to give like a special shout out to like everybody who just showed up each week, because like there were people who lost the matches where their opponent showed up and then won because of DQs, and like they still showed up each week, and like they were saying like they were having a good time and they were like grateful about the tournament, and like that means a lot. Like someone just being able to just come along and like play matches every week. And I think a lot of people just had that attitude of, I just want to play, and I want to like play under like a format where it's a bit more serious. So like special shout outs to like, I know like some people didn't get a lot of games because of DQs, and that really sucked. I know there were some unfortunate circumstances of like someone didn't check the Discord, but they were actually waiting in the lobby for their game. So they didn't check in on the website or like say anything on Discord, but they were waiting for their match. And that was a really unfortunate circumstance of, I mean, like it says on the page to, you know, Discord is how we organize these tournaments, right? Like we don't do it using the in-game chat on the website. We don't do it using like just the game itself. Like you have to take part in the like community as far as like Discord stuff goes. It's like how we organize everything. But there were people who showed up every week and like they lost or they won because they won over DQs. And like I want to give like a shout out to those kinds of people, because like you might not have like won tournament matches, but you definitely showed that you were willing to be part of the community and showed that you were willing to like take part in the event. And that to me like says a lot about someone who's like willing to just come along and be the new person and like just be here for the experience. And I hope we see more from those people, because like they're genuinely like a lot of what we do is for those kinds of people as well.
I mean, they're the people that actually like made the tournament, basically. I mean, we could have people from a community, but it would be like really small, right? So they're actually the people who made the tournament.
Yeah, I actually have to go. So bye. Thanks for having me on this podcast.
Thanks for coming.
And
Thank you.
it was a nice discussion. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye bye.
We're losing people.
I mean, I think we're pretty close to the end. I mean,
Yeah, it should
actually,
be
I
also.
have a question, Red. You didn't enter this one. Are you planning on entering the next Groove of War?
I'll see how it goes. I mean, I do want to play, but you know, the world's not very stable right now. I don't know what's going to happen with school and all that. So
That's
I
entirely
have to
fair.
see.
You're
Yeah.
just afraid to lose to me.
Okay, all right.
Look at the
Alright.
embarrassment.
It's just a trend I've noticed of like Zeronex 1, Groove of War 2 had to drop out of Groove of War 3. Red, in your case, you weren't able to enter Groove of War 4.
Yeah.
So it's like I would love to see you and Zeronex both back.
You know who I like really would like to play? Oh god, I'm forgetting his name right now. Our community promoter. The other
Halo.
Red Halo.
Red Halo.
Yeah, allegedly he's real good, but I've never played him in this game. I mean, I know he's going through some stuff, but you know.
Yeah, everybody is right now, so it's like
I'm
but-
going through the exact opposite of stuff personally.
well, everyone's going through something, even if it's different. But
Yeah.
yeah, like I would love to see. I really hope Groove of War 5, because like the thing about Groove of War 4, right, is like we had this lengthy discussion and there's definitely some issues. And like I'm hoping, because actually if I compare Groove of War 4 to Groove of War 3, the issues we're seeing are like night and day. Like Groove of War 3 was like such a stressful slog of like 2.5 months or something. And it was like lots of DQs, lots of people having problems with like arranging match times and stuff. This time, people have shown up. If people don't show up, they get DQ'd. The people that do show up, they play. The maps, I think, have been pretty good so far. Like, there's definitely some issues, but generally speaking, like we've had a lot of good games on them. And like
has
the
been
better
great.
players, the better players have generally come out on top as well. So it's never really been a case of like the maps feel like the winner is random. So definitely stuff we can improve on in the future. But like,
Let's agree to disagree on round 4.
yeah, we can disagree on round 4, but yeah, I think going forward, like the rest of the event's going to go quite well. at least from my perspective. And all the issues we've seen, we know what they are. We know we're going to have way more time to prepare for Group of 4-5, so we can do that, and we'll take a bit more time, and we'll make sure it's done to an even higher standard, right?
Let me tell you that these are what I would definitely call first world problems. Like, none of these are actual problems. They're just stuff that can probably be improved. I don't think the tournament has actual problems. I think the tournament has been run beautifully. It has been awesome. And I just hope it keeps going. And there's more of it.
Yeah, I think the main thing is everything's fixable, right? It's not like there's an inherent problem where, like, I've been taking bribes for, like, giving out, like, admin decisions or something. That's like an inherent issue with, like, the tournament. There's nothing like that happening. Like, the rules are pretty fair. They're pretty clear to understand as well. So anyone entering, like, they know what they're going in for. Like, the map thing, okay, that's like a thing that we can improve on. I would say the map
changing is something that needs to be. That's something that needs to be worked on to try to avoid at all costs.
Yeah,
because
I think
Sneaky's point, I think it's very, very, very critical. Like,
yeah, but I think
go ahead.
That is something that we're aware of, and if that's the worst thing that's happening this event, I can live with that. Like, I'll sleep at night.
So, I mean, I want to invite the viewers or listeners, not maybe viewers, I don't know.
Yeah.
Some of them to comment on this, and I know I said this earlier, and some people are like, what does that have to do with anything? But as the people listening to this, I'd like to see how you guys all feel about particularly the 3 maps that we've changed in relation to the tournament, and this all relates back to what I said way earlier. So we have Before the Flood, which was changed about 4 or 5 to 6 days before the tournament, was changed before the tournament setting.
No, Gilgamesh.
No, sorry. Yeah, I'll start again. Gilgamesh was changed 4 or 5 or 6 days before the tournament setting. Is that okay? Yes or no? Before the Flood was quite literally changed a day before people had to play their games on it. Now, it was a change for the better, ideally, but it compromised it. And then we take Cloak and Dagger. And Cloak and Dagger isn't changed for the tournament. That map was out for, a month, 2 months beforehand. And is going to be potentially, not 100% sure of that, potentially changed for maybe even the finals of this tournament. How do we all feel about these situations? Are these the right decisions? Should we change these maps, or should we just leave them as is and people suffer? Now, maybe they don't suffer, maybe they do their research, maybe there's counteractions to this, but at the end of the day, people who choose the position about which is favorable and which map is chosen is determined by a coin flip. So you try to think of all these things in a vacuum and decide, are we making the right decisions, or how do you feel about these decisions we're making? And that's all that I'm looking for at the end of this. Like, what does everybody else have to say about how we see these 3 maps in particular that we're changing in a vacuum, or potentially changing in a vacuum?
2 of them are going to get future changes. And yeah, so there's like 3 maps that are having changes, like one of them before the event, one of them before a round started, and one of them that will change. Well, that map that's changed, we're going to make a little more. We're going to make another fix to it just to prevent some other problems. And this other map that we're going to change based on like feedback from people not enjoying round 4. So yeah, I think I'm very much like willing to like hear the feedback on that as well. Definitely. Actually, like another thing as well is like there were debates about whether we should just pull maps as opposed to changing them. So I'm kind of interested to hear if people would think that would be a better choice.
Well, I mean, we have the option for map bans in it, and I'm not expecting everybody to understand exactly our tournament rule set, but if you think a map is broken, Should we ban it or not? Should we pull it from the tournament? Should we change it? What are other people's opinions of this, especially if you are not actively participating in the tournament? We want to know that as viewers of the tournament. What do you guys think about this?
I think as long as players are not forced to play any single map because there are bans, for example, it's completely fine. Even if a map is broken, it's up to the players, right? If they don't want to play it, they can play it. They can just ban it, right?
I mean, yeah, that might be my opinion, but I'm like looking for what people from the outside view think of this, because we have to consider that every single viewer or every single player comes in from this from a base
Angle.
from a different angle and a no knowledge state of this and no prior knowledge. So they have to figure out, based on these situations, what are their initial thoughts about that? Because, first impression is the most important. What do they think about these decisions we have made?
Actually, I have a question for the people here and people listening. Is like something we're considering for Group of War 5 is instead of doing one match in a set during Swiss, we do two, and it's on the same map and you just flip sides. So if you're player 1 in the first game, you'd be player 2 in the second game. And like, I'm kind of curious about people's thoughts on that. I'm curious about people's here. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Wait, so what if they win on player 1 and they lose on player 2?
Then the map score is 1-1, and like, because it's Swiss, it's based on points rather than like who wins or loses a set. So you would have
Honestly,
it's not a set.
I think that's a good
Concept.
question. I think that might be saved for a later podcast, honestly. I think that might be a better question to bring about. I want to think about that, honestly.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll put the idea out there and then people can think about it and we can discuss it again in the future.
Just to make sure, did you
Yeah.
guys understand the whole concept? Or do you need some clarification?
Concept of the Swiss point?
This 2 games, yeah. System.
No.
Okay,
I know about that.
Let me try. The system is basically, instead of playing once against each player each week, you play twice. And how many wins you get that week, you get points. So you can either go 2-0, 1-1, or 0-2, where you don't win any points because the other guy took both points. And the idea is, the reason why you do 2 games is because on every map, everyone plays on both sides. You play one game on one side, then you play another game on one side. And that eliminates most of the FTA, STA problems. Because you play it on both sides, right?
I mean, it still means like if a map has huge FTA, then like it'll still cause problems because everybody will go 1-1. But
I honestly think
that's fine, because
I
it
honestly
eliminates
think
that
this
map,
is
right?
probably a discussion based for another thing, because this is running kind of long.
yeah, this is true. We're at like hour 4 right now, so
No, it's just clarifying so the people on the comments can say something if they want to. And you guys, next time we talk about it, you already have an idea formed.
Okay.
I think this can be brought back up later.
Yeah.
okay.
It's
But yeah,
not-
I wanted to put it out there so people can think about it at least.
Okay.
So,
yeah,
are we
and
gonna close
Burke
this?
is talking about tiebreakers here. I think honestly, it's probably a good point to end it.
We've talked about everything we want to talk about, so
Okay, this has been awesome. My name is Bazik. I have a YouTube channel. If you guys want to see it, it's Bazik, probably. I think so. I sometimes do Wargroove content. I usually stream some more Wargroove content. If you're here on Twitch, you can see it more here, I guess. And some of my content also gets uploaded on the Groove of War YouTube, so you can also find me there. If you like what you saw, please give a follow. It really helps. Thank you. KillSauce, go ahead.
All right, so I'm DrKillSauce, and like I stream kind of, but not really seriously, not at all. Don't care. But realistically, you should definitely follow Bazik and GimbleB. And I mean, I guess RedJams on YouTube, but he said he doesn't care, his channel's dead. But realistically, I'm just here to provide the memes. So
hey,
That's
hey,
what
hey,
I do.
I hear your wife makes some really great Wargroove art that people could go and follow and possibly purchase.
yeah, she makes Wargroove art, but she does other things too. So yeah, direct message me on Discord or something. I mean, I'm not trying to promote like that. Yeah, like, see, Burke is like, whoa, memes. That's what I'm here for. My wife's looking at me like right now, like, what are you talking about? Stop talking about me. Anyways, Gimbal, go on. Talk about all your cool stuff.
Hello, I am probably the main tournament admin for this event. So like, you can follow us on like all the Groove of War social media to hear updates about events and stuff. I also stream this game, so if you go to twitch.tv/GimbleB, you'll be able to find my streams of the event. I'd say the main stream for this event, although it is open to basically anyone that wants to come in. And I also take guest spots on other streams occasionally to talk about Wargroove and do commentary. Mostly I'm just doing tournament stuff right now. In the future, I'd kind of like to start streaming, playing a bit of quick play and doing some actually playing more of these maps myself, because I spend so much time doing the admin side of things. I'm like I'm not well practiced at all. Like if anyone played me right now, they'd probably think I wasn't the best player. So I'm definitely going to start streaming like more of me just actually playing the game. It's how I started as well before I got into all this. And yeah, that's the main thing. Like Twitch is the main place to follow me, and also like I put content up on the Groove of War YouTube as well, so you can find me there.
RedJams?
Okay, I'm RedJams. I won the last tournament, not in this one, because personal stuff happened. I do have a YouTube channel, but a lot of ideas get scrapped, so my upload's consistent. So things might go up, things might not go up, but you could just search on YouTube RedJams and you probably find it.
Okay, nice.
All right, and as a final shout out, I just want to shout out to the other people who are here. Master of Math, who I don't think he has any social media of note, but you know he's probably our most verbose great player. He's probably one of our best, most verbose players. So he's a very strong part of the community. And also TheSneakyDragon or Wisp or whatever he goes by nowadays, because crazy guy.
TheSneakyDragon on YouTube?
TheSneakyDragon on YouTube, yeah. He makes a lot of videos and he takes that step that everybody else who wants to create stuff is afraid of doing, and he just does it and makes it. And honestly, it's pretty good content. So no, I suggest checking him out, even though, you know, we're just totally shilling TheSneakyDragon, even though he's the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I definitely think
everyone.
like
yeah.
his contribution to this community has been like really great, and like I'm super glad that he like does what he does. It's like been like an absolute pleasure working with him. Oh, I also want to mention, like, if anybody ever wants to just like get games of Wargroove and stuff, like I know Math is generally down for games, but like if people want to message us on like Discord or something and like try and organize to play games sometime, like I'm more than happy to play people if they want to hit me up and get some games. So if you're looking to get into Wargroove, then like
joining the Groove of War Discord is a good way to find matches. That's for sure.
And honestly, what Gimbal said is probably true for most players in the Groove of War Discord. There's probably very few of them who say, if you just message them directly and say, yo, can we play sometime? Like, the vast majority of us will try to make time for you to play. So it's not like we're like an exclusive community.
Not at all.
Right. And don't think like if the player's better than you, then you shouldn't play against, because that's the fastest way to learn how to be better. Just to play someone who's better than you, and then you learn from them.
And people are generally very, very friendly. I know this conversation at some points got a bit heated up, but it's all in good fun, and we all really enjoy the game, and we just like it so much that we get really heated up too, and it's all good. So don't think we're gonna be mean or anything if you come to Discord and you don't know anything, because people are really, really helpful, and we want more people. So just show up, ask for a match, and there will be people to play with you.
All right, I feel like that's a good way to end this. Of course, sometimes we're a little toxic, but what? Yo,